First off, I want to say a big thank you to Parker for coming on the podcast. This conversation is amazing. I literally got goosebumps with how excited he is and how passionate he is. We talk about some really cool lizards. He keeps majority of the tree monitors, as well as the Borneo earless monitors, the lanthanotis. So yeah, this is an absolutely amazing conversation. Thank you, Parker. Thank you all for tuning in. Like and subscribe and comment below. Basically, let me know who you want me to talk to, what topics you want me to cover. But yeah, as with all my podcasts, it's just unscripted. It's just two guys that are really passionate about lizards, just nerding out and talking about lizards. So without further ado, let's talk about some lizards. Hello everyone, and thank you for tuning in again today to the Captive Raptors podcast. We have Parker's Park on today, and we're going to have a really interesting conversation on some really eclectic monitor lizards and maybe some iguana stuff. So Parker, thank you very much for being here. And if you'd like to introduce yourself and the animals you keep, that would be amazing.
For sure. Hey, thanks for having me on here, man. I'm super happy to be here. So yeah, like you said, I'm Parker Steen, or Parker's Park is my Instagram handle. And I live in Arizona in the United States, and I keep a variety of lizards, mainly lizards. I would like to get into snakes eventually. I only recently moved out of my parents' house, and my mom is not a big fan of snakes. So that was kind of always my deal with her was I'll keep it lizards. But yeah, I mean, so when I was like little, I guess it's kind of the basic story. I was obsessed with dinosaurs, could name them all, like my mom always caught me reading dinosaur books past my bedtime, stuff like that. And then as I got older, I always wanted a bearded dragon. I always wanted a bearded dragon as a pet, but my mom was always like, no, no, they're dirty, they smell, stuff like that. And then when I was 16, I had my own job, had my own car, and one day I was like, there's nothing stopping me from just going and buying one for myself. So I just was like, whatever, I'm just gonna go do it. And so I went and got his name's Gara. I still have him. My first bearded dragon. That was about 3 years ago now. Yeah, 3 years ago this past October. And so I loved him right away. I mean, such a cool. I love bearded dragons. Like I have a lot of crazy stuff, but bearded dragons still remain one of my favorite lizards to keep for sure. And yeah, so one day there was a electrician that came over to the house actually, and he saw my bearded dragon and he was like, "Oh man, these are really cool. I love these." He started talking to me about it, and he was the first person to tell me about like morphs and like all the different colors and stuff that come in, like that they come in. And he told me about the white ones specifically, the paper white zeros. And I was like, "What?" I was blown away. So I found Morph Market shortly after that, and I realized like I just did a bunch of research and I quickly realized like the high price point of the paper white zeros and then versus how many eggs bearded dragons lay. I was like, hold on. I was like, this could be like a pretty cool business even. Like not only are these like a absolute passion of mine to keep, but like there's a pretty good business side to this as well. And yeah, so then after that, I mean, I just kind of fell into the rabbit hole of the reptile world and did all sorts of research. And then I came across the two that stood out to me the most, the two reptiles that stood out to me the most were tree monitors for sure. I was blown away when I first saw the green trees were the ones I first saw. And I mean, they just blew me away. Like how I watched a whole bunch of videos on their intelligence and the prehensile tails and just the environment they're from, all that. I mean, it was so cool to me. And also the albino iguanas. I loved the coloration of the albino iguanas, and those aren't like I've noticed that those aren't. There's not a whole lot of people that are into like even just green iguanas in general. So I've kind of wanted to change people's minds on that because oh man, I love my green iguanas. They're great. They're great pets. But yeah, after that, I mean, I went to my first reptile expo actually, and while I was walking around, I walked right by a black tree monitor, and I was like, "Whoa!" I was like, "Wait, wait, wait!" And I didn't know. I thought this stuff. I wasn't really like I saw people keeping them, but most of the people that I saw keeping them were like big YouTubers or like big like in a different country, typically like Europe or something. Europe seems to have a lot more reptiles and stuff. And so I was like, I have to get this. And it was fairly cheap at the time. I think it was like $800, which is, I mean, now they've really blown up in price. And so I took him home. I took her home actually, and I mean, I was just blown away. I mean, there's so much fun. I mean, she I got lucky with, as I've realized as I've gotten more. She was like extremely docile from the first time I got her. Like she took right off the tongs, would come out on my hand, and yeah, after that, I just kind of I fell into it. I found fauna classifieds. That's where I found my yellow trees at, and then yeah, I mean, the rest is history from there, pretty much.
That's
But
I just want to first off by start. I want to start by saying your passion's amazing. Like I've got goosebumps. I'm a bit elated right now on how I've actually generally. I'm not just saying. I've generally got goosebumps on how excited you are, which is nice. So
thanks, man.
I feel like we're gonna have a good conversation. But I'm just gonna say, you went from a bearded dragon to a black tree monitor. So
Yeah.
be real with me. Be honest.
Mhm.
Do you think you were underprepared for a tree monitor when you got it?
Yeah, so that was actually so that this is funny because so I there was like a little bit of an in between. Like I had a couple bearded dragons and I actually got my albino iguana before then, but like still the jump from a bearded dragon to a I think I had like a crested gecko and a fire skink at that time, but like nothing really crazy, and then to an albino iguana. The reptile store that I first went to, which I actually now work at, is it's called Predator Reptile Center or Predators Reptile Center, and they are like they're a really cool reptile store here in Arizona, and they would get in the most insane reptiles. And like I had been to other stores around here, and like they'd have your typical like corn snakes, ball pythons, leopard geckos, bearded dragons. And but Predator, I mean, they would have all sorts of monitors, white throats, black throats, roughnecks, like Ackies, just everything. And so like I would go in there and I think I got my Ackie monitor actually before. Yeah, I got my Ackie monitor before. Excuse me, before I got the albino iguana. But yeah, they would kind of laugh at me when I went in there. They were like, are you sure you're prepared for this?" But a big thing that I've always had is like I have a great respect for these animals, and I never have and never want to be the kind of keeper that is just like impulse buying and like just wants the animal to have the animal, like to tell other people, oh, I have this animal. Like if I'm getting an animal, I want to be 100% prepared, want to make sure I can give it the maximum space, not like the minimum. Like I want to make sure I can set it up perfectly so it's not just surviving, it's thriving, and it's happy, and it knows it's in a good environment. Because I mean, it didn't ask to be taken. Like a lot of my tree monitors are imports, and I mean, they didn't ask to be ripped out of the wild and like imported across the country or not across the world. And so I do everything in my power to like really make sure that I know what I'm doing. So like to answer your question on the black tree monitor, I definitely like at the time I was heavily debating, and I remember I was at the expo for like 4 or 5 hours because I was like I saw the black tree monitor at first, and then I like went in the back and I was like just doing all this research. I'm like, okay, can I get this? Can I do this? Can I prepare? Like, and yeah, so I would say I was pretty prepared. I definitely didn't know everything, but I feel like a lot of what I know now has kind of come with the experience of just working with the lizards. Um, but yeah, yeah.
Yeah, that's I appreciate the honesty. And you have a similar philosophy to me in the sense of these animals didn't ask to be here, so it's the least we
Mhm.
can do to make them as comfortable as possible. Um, so yeah, so you start with your bearded dragon, worked up to your Aki. I imagine then going to an iguana, the albinos. I
Mhm.
imagine that was a bit of a jump, and then obviously you get your black tree, and now you're dealing with, let's say, a true monitor because Akis are an easier transition.
Mhm.
Um, just quick summarization of what did that black tree teach you or show you that you didn't find online? Because, like for example, um, my tree monitors, I have green ones, and they sleep in the water bowl quite regularly. and I never
Mhm.
read once that they do that.
Mhm.
But one of
Yeah.
mine more so does it almost every night. So just an example like that, if any, or even you said just quickly before we were on air, but that you are quite lucky with your black tree, in the sense of that it's very social, as in
Mhm.
comparison to the others. So was it more so when you got your yellow trees when you actually realized, oh God, what have I got in for? Or were you a lot more prepared by then?
So yeah, actually, the yellows were my most challenging for sure. So the black tree, for starters, what I really was surprised to I mean, of course, you read it everywhere, like, oh, monitors are so intelligent, but like, it blew me away, like how intelligent they really are. Like, I would notice I couldn't trick her. Like, she was hesitant to take like pinky mice and eggs and stuff. She only really wanted dubia roaches, which is kind of weird because that's kind of inverse of like all the other ones I've had pretty much. But I noticed like I couldn't like trick her into taking food. Like I was really good at tricking my bearded dragons into eating like all their greens and different fruits and stuff, but I just couldn't get her. I'd like I wouldn't try I would try to like flash it over her like try to make it dance really quick and she would get all excited and run towards it, but then the second her tongue hit it, I'd tell she'd be like, "Oh, that's I know what that is. I don't want that."
Yeah.
So like that was a pretty big like realization for me. Also, like with the yellows when I first got the yellows, I was prepared to like get them in their enclosures, give them like a day or two, and then they'd be eating off the tongs for me right away. Well, that was not the case at all. So, I mean, when they first came to me, the guy they came from, great guy, his name's Josh Farmer, and they were in good health, like they were great health, but they were imports. My male was definitely like he had some decent weight on him, not a lot. The female was extremely skinny. I was like nervous that she wasn't gonna make it, and she was and is so flighty. Like she is easily my most nervous tree monitor. And yeah, so it took me like probably, I think for the yellow male, it was like 2 months for me to get him to trust me to take off the tongs. And then for the yellow female, I mean, it was like around a year before she like actually would come up and trust me. And one of the things that I found really interesting for them was I had them separated when I first got them, and they had already been paired up, like previous to them coming to me. Not they were a little bit before maturity. They were probably like sub-adults when they first came to me, and so they hadn't bred or anything yet, but they were like comfortable with each other. And so around, I'd say like the 8 month point of me having them, I put them together in their now enclosure. And like after probably like 3 or 4 months, the female started realizing like she would come out and watch the yellow male take the food from me and like come on my arm and she'd watch me pet him. And so then slowly she just kind of started warming up to me more and more. And then one day I stuck to the routine. Like there was never a day that I didn't go in there and like, oh man, I used to get cramps all up my arm and stuff because I'd sit there, I'd start at the back of the room and she would be out basking, and then I'd grab the doobie roach and I'd hold it up and stick my arm straight out, and then I'd like inch towards her. And every time I'd see her pupils get big or she'd kind of rear up, I'd freeze and then wait for her to kind of settle down, and then I'd inch closer. And I just do that every day for like a year. And then one day she finally just snapped on the bug and just took it. And I was like, oh my God, thank God. And now she's doing fantastic. Now she's put on so much weight. She won't like come on my arm. She'll put her hands on my hand, like her front hands, and then she'll kind of like give me a weird look. But yeah, I'm super thrilled with how far she's come for sure. But I really wasn't prepared for like, and a lot of people aren't either, because I would say the green trees are like easily the most popular. And what I feel like has happened is there's a lot more captive bred green trees in the hobby. So you see, like yours, for example, yours are super comfortable with handling, and like that's like so cool. So like I was kind of expecting that after a while, but mine, I mean, my yellow male, he is 100% fine with me grabbing him out. Well, it depends. Sometimes he's not a big fan of it, but I never restrain any of my animals. So like if I can't just scoop them up in my hand and then walk them, then I'm not handling them today. Like I like to really respect their how they feel. I don't want to stress them out too much or anything like that. So I was really underprepared for how flighty, like, and how difficult it was going to be to get like some of them to eat. And I also had the same experience with my older captive bred blue female, and she's captive bred, but yeah, she was a weird one. But I actually, you know what? I'll tell you a quick story about her. This was interesting. So for the longest time, when I first got her, I could tell a difference right away between her and the imports. She was definitely much more comfortable, like around humans and stuff. Like she would stay out just fine. I could stick my hand in there and like change the light bulb or take some readings. She would never really freak out, but she wouldn't take food off the tongs. Like it was so weird. And it wouldn't be certain items. Like it would just be randomly. Sometimes you just run up and take it right off the tongs. But it would be like once a week. And then other than that, I couldn't get her to eat. So I was like, really, I don't know. I was just confused. She had me stumped. And like, she was my sixth tree monitor. So like, I had it down by then. So I was like, I mean, I don't know what it is. But one day, my mom, because so like around 2 months ago, I moved out and I'm working on getting new enclosures for all the tree monitors and stuff, and then I'm gonna move them over to my new house. But for now, my amazing mom, who I couldn't do any of this without, she's a big help, and
Shout out,
she was
mum.
going, yeah, shout out my mom for sure. And she went in there to feed the my crested gecko, and it was at night, and she was like hearing noises, and she's like, "Who's out right now?" And it was my blue female, the captive one. She was like out and wide awake, just crawling around, and it was like 10 o'clock at night. Might have been like more like 9, 10. And so she was like, "I'm gonna try to feed her." So she just randomly went in there and decided to try to feed her, and she took like 6 dubia roaches like right away, just
Oh,
no
damn.
hesitation. So then the next day, she went in there, or I came home because I always come home in the mornings and then take care of them before work and stuff. So I come home and I'm like, my mom told me what happened. So I'm like, oh, I'm like, awesome. She'll probably tongue feed then. So I go in there and I try to offer it to her. Doesn't want anything to do with it. Same thing the next day. So I'm like, try it again at night. I'm like, try feeding her at night. So she tries it again at night, eats it all right away. So I'm like, I'm confused now. But yeah, so then just for like the next 2 weeks, we just kept feeding her at night. And what I would do is I would tell her to like kind of inch it closer to like the daylight. And now she eats during the day just fine. But I thought it was really interesting, and I kind of have a theory on it. I feel like the reason that that might be is because she was raised in captivity. So I feel like whoever was maybe taking care of her before um, was like getting home from work late and feeding her then as a baby. And so then she just got accustomed to like eating at night or eating when it's dark out. And yeah, so I thought that was like really, really, I don't like obviously know for sure that that's what it is, but I mean, can't really think of why else she would have only wanted to eat at night. So I
Yeah.
thought that was a pretty interesting thought of like how intelligent they really are.
My when you started telling that story, my first inkling was so for example, let's just say you have your lights on 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. Let's just say she could have been kept where they were doing a reverse light cycle. So she could have had her lights on from 8 p.m. to 8 a.m. So she was still
Yeah.
had light, but she was used to it being like 10 o'clock at night. And it would have to be, and or like you say, she's getting fed late.
Mhm.
But it would have to be so regimented. For example, every 3 days they fed her at 11 p.m. at night for her to
Mhm.
ingrain into her. But yeah, I believe that they
Yeah.
could probably definitely learn a pattern. And like I
Mhm.
have a Tristus
Mhm.
that for the longest time wouldn't eat because all she was fed was mealworms.
Mhm.
And she just wouldn't eat anything other than mealworms, and she would only eat at certain times as well. Whereas normally you'd expect a monitor to just be a ravenous savage and eat everything you offer. Um,
Exactly.
but yeah, on your On your point on the difference between captive bred and wild caught, believe it or not, but my 2 adult tree males are wild caught. Obviously my baby's captive bred, and my male sarong, so my big green one, he will come onto my hand, like similar like you're saying, for your yellow, and then will just look at me strange and then run off. And then my Maruki male used to come all over me, and then he got out and escaped for like 11 days and was living outside, and my girlfriend came home and found him outside my front door, just outside in the sun. Thankfully the UK was having a really hot summer, because normally we have quite cold nights.
Yeah.
But yeah, ever since then he's hated me. So he had a taste of freedom again. But yeah, it's just like you say, it's just about showing up regularly. In my opinion anyway, we don't need to fully handle these animals. It's good to interact with them 100%. It allows interaction and stimulus, as well as allows you to check them over because they're a lot closer to you, as well as obviously not becoming scared of you, because that's the biggest thing, especially with imports. They can't fresh come in and all of a sudden they're scared of their keeper. It's just not good for anybody involved. But have you got any other captive bred tree monitors, or just the blue?
Just the one blue.
Just the one blue.
Yep. Yeah,
Okay.
all the other ones are imports.
Imports. And how many tree monitors do you have in total?
7.
7 tree. God damn, man,
Yeah.
you're living the best life.
Yeah, I'm pretty blessed. I'm pretty blessed for
No,
sure.
that's pretty sick. Started with a bearded dragon and now we're here. So
For real, and only in like 3 years.
that's good.
So
That's
I'm
good.
moving quick, but no, yeah, I'm super fortunate. Yeah,
That's good.
it's been a blast. I have a trio of blue tree monitors, a pair of yellows, and then a pair of black tree monitors. And I
Okay.
actually just completed my pair of blacks. I just got my male black tree around like a week ago, I think.
Nice.
Yeah,
Nice.
and he's doing great. So
Yeah, yeah. Okay, so you've got pretty much all of them other than like Bohemi, Cordensis, and Prasinus.
yes.
Obviously there's a couple of others, but not really available. So what,
Mhm.
in your observations, is the main difference, if any, in behaviors and characteristics between yellows, blacks, and blues?
So I'm actually really glad you asked that. So I love talking about this because what I have personally observed, and I have yet to verify it with my male black tree. I mean, he's been tongue feeding for me. He's just still kind of hesitant to come near me. So I'll need to work on that before I like really say for sure. But at least my black female, my black tree female, she exhibits like a lot more intelligence almost than the other ones. I feel like she's just out of this world, man. I mean, it's her use of her hands that really blows me away. Like there was one time I've been trying to train her to jump on my shoulder, and one time she like kind of did it, and then she missed the bug, and it like fell out of her mouth. And I mean, I watched her stand up on her hind legs and full on just go down and catch the bug with both her hands, and
Damn.
then just bite it on the head. And I was like, what? Like I was like, oh my gosh, that was the coolest thing I've ever seen. And yeah, so and not only that, she also for a period she learned I started moving her water dish a little bit closer to the front door just because I was kind of like tired of like breaking my back trying to stick all that water in the back. And it only took her a few days. And I walk in there one day and the door is just cracked open and I'm like, uh-oh. I'm like, oh, this isn't good. I got a tree monitor on the loose. So I'm looking around. She's up top. It was easy. I just brought her on my arm and then like put her back. She's pretty easy to get back in. But I was blaming my little brother for coming in and like looking at him. I was like, dude, I was like, you can't. It's like if you go in there, you can't open the doors and stuff and yada yada. And he's like, no, like it wasn't me. And then the next day I come in and it's cracked open again. So now I'm like, okay.
Mm.
I'm like, maybe she's doing this. And so as the days went on, it kept happening like frequently. Like there was one time I put her back and then she was back out like within the hour. So I put her back and then I stayed and I watched and like because the way her cage is set up, it's got a wall on one side because it's a corner shower that I have her in. Uh,
Hmm.
I have all 3 of my tree monitors in corner showers that I like converted into enclosures. So it's like I had to build like a fake wall kind of sticking out of my wall to kind of, yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
So
yeah.
I was on the other side of that, and I watched her go down, and she figured out she could put her back legs on the water dish and her front legs on the door and just push it open.
Oh, damn.
And I was like, man, she is something else. So I moved the water dish, and now it's not a problem. But yeah, that blew me away at how smart they were. And the blues and the yellows will definitely use their hands, just not to the extent that the blacks do, I would say. I've noticed a lot more just usage of their hands, which just is so cool. And the greens I know definitely do. I've
Yeah,
seen a
mine do
lot of
it. Yeah.
videos. Yeah, yeah. I've seen a ton of videos of like people with the test tubes and stuff, and I've done that with my black, and she loves to do that. And she also one time there was like she used to have this cork log that had like a little hole in the top that she could kind of stick her nose in, but not get her head all the way through. And so I would put crickets on the other side of that, and she'd lick it a couple times, and then she'd put her head down, and you just see a hand come up and just two nails grab the cricket
Yeah,
and just
yeah.
pull it back down. So yeah, I've tried it with my other ones, and they'll be like they'll just find a better way to get it with their mouth rather than use their hands. Whereas it seems the blacks are more inept to just go for the hands right away. They're like, oh yeah, I know I can use these. Other than that, like for habitat requirements, I would say that the blues are a bit more bold than the other ones. I feel like they're just a bit bolder. They are, as I'm sure you know, a little bit larger than all the
Yeah.
other tree monitors. So I feel like maybe it has something to do with that. They're just a little more confident. They're also from like just a remote island, so could also just be something with that. But yeah, they seem to tend to not hide as much as my black trees and my yellow trees will, I would say. And they like it a little bit cooler in the
Okay.
basking temperatures, I think.
What
At
temperature
least
are you
I've
giving them?
noticed. So I like to I used to always just take measurements of the actual basking spot itself, but I've kind of in the past few months recently changed to always just taking temperatures of the actual lizard at like midday when it's getting its prime bask in.
Mm-hmm.
So I usually will like to keep the tree monitors from anywhere from like 98 degrees to like getting up to maybe even like 103, 104 at
Mm-hmm.
like the hotter points of the day, like later afternoon. For the blues, though, I noticed that they would kind of lay off more to the side of the basking spot rather than right on the focal point. So I've kind of kept them more like 94 to like 98, 99 at the hotter parts of the day.
Mm-hmm.
But the basking spot itself, I've noticed, gets a little bit hotter than what like they actually are getting. So like their
Yeah.
basking spot will read like anywhere from like 105 to like 110, depending on the time of the day. And yeah, I just kind of experimented with that for a while, just kind of moving the bulb to different parts of the like basking spot and just kind of watching them throughout the week, seeing where they like to lay more, if they're basking for like multiple hours of the day, or just kind of come out for they come in periods and then they'll get active. That's usually what I look for. Is they'll tend to come out like around 10, 11, a couple hours after the lights have been on. And then they'll bask for like an hour or two, depending, and they'll kind of get active and start going all around. And then I'll come feed them. And then after they eat, they like to lay and bask, and then they'll usually go hide. They love routine. I've noticed they like routine. If you break routine, it can kind of mess with them. They don't like it. And I've also noticed they can be extremely sensitive, which it might be more of a problem for me because I live in Arizona where it's dry as can be.
Yeah.
But I've noticed they can be very sensitive to little humidity or even just like less humidity. Then typically will keep them like 80% to 90%, sometimes even more humid depending on the time of the year. Um, but I've noticed like they'll kind of just go down and like lay in the water dish if like I let the Mr. Bucket run out for like even a day. And
Okay.
so I'm usually really on top of making sure they have enough moisture.
That's
But
interesting.
yeah.
Because I keep my Prasinus similar temperature,
Hmm.
probably a little bit hotter.
Hmm.
Um, but I'm talking 110, 115, so not
Yeah,
much
and for
hotter.
a younger lizard, that's typically what you would rather do. Like my younger blue female too, I have her I think around like 110. I've noticed I've noticed and I've read a few things that younger lizards tend to like do better with hotter temperatures, so they can just metabolize stuff quicker.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
But yeah.
Yeah, and then the humidity, I keep mine relative around 70% for the most part. If we're talking wet season, because I cycle mine. So I keep mine relative around 70%. Obviously it spikes when I spray them, which will be daily. And then when I'm in their drier season, I only spray them 3 or 4 times a week. So they'll sit around 50% relative, but they don't year round, they'll sleep in the water bowl, mainly my Maruki, but I've seen my sarong do it. Year round, they'll sleep in the water bowl, but during the day, even when I haven't sprayed in 3 or 4 days, they're still acting as normal. But I don't know if that would be because obviously, with my knowledge being correct, obviously my Prasinus are from sarong and Maruki. The black trees are from Aru. The blue trees are Batanta, and I don't know off the top of my head where the yellow trees are from. But it could be island locality, because the problem is people just assume Indonesia and assume hot and humid, whereas there are going to be a million microclimates for any given species to be able to find any given humidity, temperature, whatever they see fit. But that's interesting that you've observed that, because it's obviously I don't keep any of those species, but it's almost the opposite to what I've observed. If anything, they lay in the water bowl when it's more humid, because obviously at night it becomes more humid anyway because the lights go off. So yeah, that's quite interesting. And I've seen a lot of hand action with I fed my Maruki the other day, and I came right up onto my arm, and then it grabbed the bug, but it also grabbed half the tongs, and it literally grabbed the tongs of its hand and pulled the tongs out of its mouth. And I was like,
oh wow.
And
That's cool.
I was like, and it still had like the bug, and then it took its other hand and like was sort of holding itself up, took its other hand, pulled the bug round, took one hand, pulled the tongs out, looked at me as if to say, "What are you trying to do? Break my teeth?" And then ran back into the enclosure. So yeah, when they do that, it's pretty special. So but that's interesting. The blacks, you find the blacks do it more, because again, I haven't had experience with them. But yeah,
I would say that's interesting you say that, because I would 100% agree. I have definitely noticed it more with the blues, and the yellows a bit are more sensitive. The blacks I would say are more like your green trees, where they don't seem to mind as much if the humidity drops. I've noticed that yeah, because like the humidity, I actually have less misters in their enclosure, and they shed just fine, but so do the other ones who have a bit more humidity. It's really the blues, though, I would say, that I've really noticed. Like, it's both my blue females that I've seen do that, where it's like if I forgot to spray them, because they're in smaller enclosures, so typically I'll just hand spray them, whereas I
yeah,
have like what's a Miss King. I don't know. I think it's actually a European brand, so you might.
yeah. I know, we know what it is. Yeah.
Oh, okay, sweet. And so yeah, I have a main Miss King that runs all the tree monitors, and my Lewis size, like I'll sometimes use on that. It just kind of depends, because I have it spray quite a bit for the tree monitors, because I mean it's like 10% humidity year round here in
Yeah.
Arizona. But yeah, I would, and it would make more sense for that, because they're more of an island locality tree monitor. But um, but yeah, yeah.
No,
I would
that's cool.
like to get some green trees. The green trees are cool. I had a baby green tree for a few months, but so I got him from my pet store, and when he first came in, whoever sent them to our store, they had like done the deflagellant medicine and all that to like get rid of the parasites.
Yeah.
And when doing that, whoever used the syringe or whatever kind of got a little nick on the green tree's mouth, and it was just like a little sore at first, and like it kind of healed, scabbed over, so I was like, oh, it'll be fine. And then after like a month or two, it started, like not even a month or two, it was like a couple weeks, and it started kind of swelling up, and I noticed quickly that it was like swelling up, and I was concerned, because he was so social. Like I would handle him daily. I didn't even always have to have bugs or anything. And that was really refreshing for me because this was before I had any of my other tree monitors super socialized.
Yeah, yeah.
And so yeah, I took him to the vet right away, and they gave me a medicine for him, and I would give him the medicine daily. And I did like one round of medicine, it didn't work. Did another, I think I did a third, and then I mean, he was eating fine and everything, and then just one day I walked in there and he'd just given out, and
Yeah.
he didn't even show any signs like the previous day of being weak or anything. And but yeah,
Yeah, it
that was
sucks.
that was a bummer. But oh well. Well,
Yeah, it
hopefully,
happens when you
yeah.
sadly when animals are imported, regardless of the species. And obviously tree monitors are known to be that little bit more fragile in comparison to say
Mhm.
savannas or Niles.
For sure.
So if you do get one come in and it's starting on the wrong foot, you're more
Mhm.
yeah. So that's it. Yeah, it happens, and it's good that you can speak about it and be honest about it, because I think the problem is nowadays, and again, I don't want to be a hypocrite because I do it and you post on social media your tame tree monitors and all this.
Mhm.
People see it and then they go, "Oh my god, that must be so easy." So I'm thankful that you're honest about how flighty and hard your yellows were, and then obviously the tragic ending to the Pracinas. But yeah,
Mhm.
social media, not just with monitors, but obviously it's as a monitor podcast, so we'll keep it to monitors, but all reptiles. People
Mhm.
see these super tame tree monitors like Reptiliartus's Prasinus.
Yep.
Literally, Sabzi will just jump out onto him, and then don't get me wrong, we all want it. You know, I want my baby to be like that, but I think
Oh yeah.
there's a difference between understanding that that may never happen, and then just all you think is that it can happen, because obviously it can have a reverse effect, and by forcing interaction, those animals can become stressed, which then and in turn can result in a dead animal.
Yep.
So where do I want to go? Should we we'll stick on socialization for this for the moment.
Okay.
We'll stick with tree
Yeah.
monitors for the moment, and then we'll dive into a couple of other species and on the subject of socialization. So obviously you're socializing your tree monitors. And
Mhm.
again, be honest with me, be real with me. Because like I say, I do it, so I'm not. This is not me being hypocritical because I do it. But how much of it do you think is for you, and how much of it do you think is for them? And then what benefits do you think that the tree monitors get from it?
That is a good question. That's actually a really good question. I would say it's for both parties. Like obviously I want to interact with my pets and everything. However, I am a very firm believer, and I always am preaching this at my job at the reptile store. It's up to the individual animal. Like I always say, if you need to be able to read your lizard and know if it's comfortable with what you're doing or if it's not. I think it's important though, like as much as it would be fun to like go in there and handle my blue tree or handle my black tree, I know that they are not going to like it. Like if they're huffing and puffing, if I have to restrain them in any sort of way, then I shouldn't be handling them. That's my honest opinion. So like leading them onto my arm, well, obviously like with the exception of like like
Yeah, of course. Yes,
emergencies, then you have
sometimes
to
you have
grab them
to.
out.
Yeah,
Yeah,
sometimes you
yeah.
have to.
But other than that, I try to just completely limit it because like my blue, so they're all different. They are all different. If I have to, my blue tree male, he sometimes will get a bit of like gingivitis is actually what the vet has been calling it, in
Okay.
his gums, where it just kind of gets red and inflamed. It doesn't cause him any pain or anything. And so I now know that now that we know what it is, we gave him like a one-time oral steroid,
Mm-hmm.
and it seemed to get rid of it right away. And then I spray him with like a 1 to 10 ratio of Listerine and water,
Okay. Yeah, yeah.
and it seems to work really well. But yeah, so like we had the vet come and do a house call here, and he grabbed him out, and he was like, he was mad. And then when he restrained his head and gave him the medicine, he actually bit the doctor.
Okay.
But then when we put him back in the enclosure, the next day he was coming on my arm taking bugs like it was nothing. Like he wasn't really phased by it. However, that was still stressful for him, and like
Yes.
he's just much more food motivated, whereas he's an adult. He understands like, okay, I need this food. And actually, let me rephrase. He wasn't coming like right on my arm. He would take bugs off the tongs, but he didn't really want to come near me at all for like a little while.
Yeah.
Now my black tree monitor female, she's gotten a bit better. Like as I said, she's very social. However, she's only very social with me. If anyone else comes in and tries to like I remember I had one of my coworkers come over and check out the collection, and when he went to Tom feeder, she like came running for the because the way her enclosure is designed, there's kind of like a little ledge, so she can't really see you until she's up and over the ledge.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so she came running for the bug like she always does. And then the second she got on his hand, she paused, took a step back, looked at him, and then just launched back in the
Oh god.
enclosure. And then after that, she wouldn't come on my arm for like weeks. Like she wouldn't even come near me. She wouldn't tongue feed. And I had another experience where I was trying to get a video, and I had my dad come in and take a video,
Yeah.
and I had him stand just a little bit too on the side. So when she came all the way out on my arm, she saw him, she just freaked out. And that was like another few weeks before I got her to trust me again. So I always tell people like you just want to really read them. Like it's up to the individual animal. Um, like my yellow male, the only reason I handle him is because he'll be basking. I'll go in there, I'll start petting him on the chin, he'll close his eyes. I'll kind of just slide my hand up under him, and he'll either like take his, I'll pick him up like kind of vertically, and then he'll either
Yeah.
take his back legs and put it on my hand, or he'll just like crawl over my hand and go in his log. And like it's not in like a run or a hurry. He's not freaked out. He just is like not right now. Otherwise, he'll just kind of come up on my hand, and I'll take him out, and he'll just like crawl up my arm. And then when he's done, he just jumps back, and then I don't try to force it on him anymore. Now, I think it is very important though. So, like for example, my yellow female, like how I worked with her for that whole year, like never give up, but never give up on trying to socialize them. Keep the routine, however, also be mindful of how much your lizard can take. Like you don't want to stress it out too much. Like if I in my like how I mentioned like I would start at the back of the room, inch towards her, and I've also noticed they love to be above you.
Yeah.
Like if they're below you or even like eye level, they get a lot more spooked than if they're above you. It's like I'd even get on my knees sometimes and kind of just like shuffle
Yeah. Yeah.
towards her.
Yeah.
And yeah, so like it's important to keep that up. But like if she would start like take off and start banging her face on the top, I'm like, oh, and I just dip out of the room and I just wouldn't
Yeah.
go back in there for like an hour because it's just like you don't want to you want to they're such intelligent animals. You can 100% teach them and show them that you're not a threat, and that's both beneficial to you and the lizard, I think, because they shouldn't be living in constant fear and stress because you're doing everything in their power to give them the best life possible. They don't have to go hungry, they don't have to live with parasites, they don't have to worry about predators, like all this
Yeah.
stuff. So you want to make them feel comfortable. um, but yeah, I'd say it's for both. I'd say it's for both of us.
Yeah, I pretty much agree. I agree definitely 100% on the animal. If you have an animal that's scared of you, it's very important that you allow that animal to see that you're not a threat. But like you say, 100% on their terms. And if it takes you 5 years, you made that commitment to that animal. Slow and steady wins the race when it comes to monitor lizards. You see all these people that not with tree monitors, but they just force them, dig them out of their enclosures, and they put them in the bath, and then they make them interact with them whilst they're in the bath. And I watch that. I'm not really a person that gives hate, so I don't comment or preach, but I
Yeah.
watch it and I might send it to one of my friends going, Jesus Christ.
Yeah, come on.
But yeah, just on the tree monitors as well at the moment then. So obviously you've got trio of blues, pair of blacks, pair of yellows. How are your breeding plans? If you've had eggs already, or if not, how are your breeding plans going?
So I haven't had eggs yet. I just I paired up my yellows at the beginning of this year, pretty much. Wait, yeah, a little into the winter last year. But they were kind of getting used to each other again. I've read a bunch of reports that say like you don't really want to, or not really, you don't want to, you don't expect eggs like the very first breeding season.
No.
You pair up a tree monitor.
Yeah.
But one of the other things that I've really read that I've read a bunch of like zoo reports from like I think it was like the Cincinnati Zoo, the St. Louis Zoo. It's commonly black tree monitors that they like to breed in the zoos. But what all of them would always talk about, and what I kind of speculated from the start, is like the real key for tree monitors is like your female has to be very happy, very comfortable, very fat, very healthy, and like just like everything has to be perfect for the female, because if she's in the slightest bit discomforted, even if she does manage to like conceive eggs and like actually have a fertile clutch, she'll deposit them somewhere that is terrible. And tree
Yeah.
monitor eggs are very fragile. So like if
Yeah.
she just deposited them in like a cork log and I didn't see them, or even in a water dish or something like that. I mean, there's like even in a lay box, I've read if they don't do it like completely vertically, if they kind of just like do it on the surface, that can mess them up. And yeah, so I would say I just lost my train of thought. Yeah, so I haven't had success yet, but now it's really only been this past like 5 months, I'd say, that my
Hmm.
female has really started to come around. And now, actually, this past like few weeks, I have caught them locked up a couple times.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah.
And she's looking. I'll send you a photo after this. She's looking pretty pear shaped, so she's
Okay.
looking like she could be gravid,
Yeah. Yeah.
which I'm really got my fingers crossed. And then the blacks I just paired up because I just got the male.
Yeah. Yeah.
They're doing great. At first, I was a little nervous because the female was really freaked out by its presence.
Yeah.
But it only took like a day, and now they're laying all over each other, basking and stuff. So they're doing good. The male I did catch right away when I first put him in there. He ran up and tried to kind of like mount her like right away.
Okay.
And it kind of freaked her out and she ran, but that's
Yeah.
got me hopeful that in the next few weeks, hopefully I can get them paired up. And then my blues, my oldest female blue, she's like a year and like 9 months old, I want to say, something like
Hmm.
that. So she's almost there, and she's probably nearing 4 feet right about now, and
Oh, nice.
she's got great size on her.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna pair her up with my male in the next couple months. I really want to make sure she's completely ready to go in with him because he's a big male blue.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
he's about as big as they get. So yeah, in the next few months I'll get those blues paired up, and then my younger blue female, she's probably a little bit over a year old now. She's probably like 2.5 feet long, maybe,
Okay.
including tail. So she's not too big, but not too small anymore. So I'm about to get her in a new enclosure. And then yeah, hopefully around next breeding season or next winter, I guess. I can get her in there and then have the complete trio going, which would be
Yeah, that'd be nice.
awesome. Yeah,
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
that younger one has some ridiculous blues. I've posted her on my story a couple times, and actually I did a couple reels of her, but I'll also send you a photo
Yeah. 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 Please
of
do.
her that I have. She's fluorescent blue, but yeah,
Yeah. No,
I'm excited.
your yellows are out of this world. Like, if anyone hasn't
Thank you.
seen like Parker's Park Instagram, if you want to see some of the nicest yellow tree monitors like that I've seen. So on the breeding, I don't know. I'm very versed in it. I've never I've never really bred monitors, to be honest. I've had regular eggs from a mangrove monitor, which is obviously quite a hard feat to do, and I've managed to pinpoint fertilogenesis from start to finish all 3 times. Breed Ackies all day long. Had a couple of eggs from some Timors, but my Timors are only 2. So they had eggs last year and they were quite young. But yeah, I've read a lot and I've seen a lot. So are you doing any of the above or all of the above? Are you humidity cycling, food cycling, light cycling, and temperature cycling, or are you just keeping it stable year round?
So I have read a bunch about that. So I've been debating. I'm thinking after this season, if something goes wrong or if I don't get any from my yellows, I'm going to switch to cycling the mist because I've read a lot. The mist, I do cycle lights. Like I won't like turn them off during the day like some people will do and make it colder in there because like it's in Indonesia. I mean, it's staying like, especially where
Yeah,
they're from, like it's staying like 75, 80 in the daytime, or not even that. In the daytime, it's like 80, 85, like
yeah,
year round. So
yeah,
I pretty much keep it warm. However, I do turn the lights off like as the seasons change here. Like the second the sun comes up, lights go on. Second sun goes down, lights go off. So that does do a bit of a change. And I haven't done the misting system change because I've read a few different reports that say like some keepers will claim that the misting cycle is what will trigger breeding for some tree monitor pairs. But then I've also read a majority of people will say that they never do anything like that. And if you're just keeping them 100% healthy, happy, and like they're not nervous at all,
Hmm.
that's the key, is like making sure they're not nervous at all, because that's a really hard thing to do with tree monitors because of how intelligent they are and how they're a smaller species of monitor. They just don't have that confidence that like an Asian water monitor has, for example,
Yeah.
like my baby Asian. Like if it's not like if he was a problem, it wouldn't be the problem of him being flighty. It'd be more the problem of him being defensive, which is
Yes.
like a whole different story
Yeah.
and a whole different socialization tactic, I would say. So yeah, so I just kind of keep it stable, just match the seasons, stuff like that. But I will probably cycle the misting systems. That's my next step because I have seen some people say that that will trigger it for some pairs that haven't. I've also read that introducing a third female into the mix will also kind of jumpstart things for some pairs. So I've kind of thought about that too for my yellows, but I'm thinking this year they might get the job done. I'm hoping. So
Yeah. Fingers crossed. My understanding of it all. So obviously Indonesia is a big area, so always search your individual island or group of islands. But basically in Indonesia, from June to September, they have a bit of a dry period, and it's still wet because it's a rainforest.
Yeah.
But the nights are a lot less humid and hot. So the temperature during the day is pretty much stable. Obviously, you get a raining season, which is where it's raining obviously a lot of the time. But from June to September, the nights will actually drop in temperature by up to, in some places, 10 degrees, which is a lot.
Wow. Yeah. Wow.
And then because there's no cloud cover, or not as much cloud cover, because it's the dry season, there's no rain clouds, the humidity has more space to dissipate. So not only are you getting a nighttime drop, you're also getting a humidity drop at the same time. That's fact. This bit's theorized because I've never been there, but I've spoken to a few people that live there. And during the dry season, animals are a little less sparse. So sorry, a bit more sparse. So because it's not as wet, there aren't as many frogs, there aren't as many lizards, there aren't as many bugs out and about. They're still ample because they're year-round animals, but in comparison to the wet season. So to my knowledge of breeding tree monitors, because the male has nothing to do with it, a female will cycle regardless without a male's influence. So to my knowledge of breeding most monitors to tree monitors, you have that dry period where they have a little bit less food, a little bit colder nights, and then from the dry period it stables out, and then all of a sudden goes into the wet season. So all of a sudden the drier, colder nights turn into warmer, wetter nights, wetter days, and all of a sudden out of nowhere there's lots of food. So females go, okay, there's lots of food, my babies can survive, this is a great time to breed. So then they start what's called vitellogenesis, which is basically just the depulsion of yolk, so for them to be able to develop and create eggs. If things aren't correct, then they might not do that, and if they do, they might reabsorb. But like my mangrove's never met a male, but she's laid me 3 clutches of eggs this year because I cycle her.
Okay.
So that, again, I've never bred tree monitors. My best friend in the hobby, MJH Exotics, he breeds green trees, and he breeds green trees like I breed Ackies. Like he's got green trees coming out of his like arse. Like he's got so many.
That's awesome.
I don't think, and he might slate me for this, but I don't think he changes too much. He changes like the light cycle, but I don't think he dries them out too much. But he gets lots of eggs. And I mean, I think he's had like over 20 Pracinas this year. I think.
Wow.
Yeah, he's doing well, man.
Wow, that's
Yeah, he's
cool.
doing well.
Holy crap.
And
20, that's a lot.
yeah, and he's just got some blacks. Well, he's had blacks for a while.
That's
they're
good.
only young, captive bred. And his male is so social, it like jumps out onto him. And
that's so cool.
but yeah, so onto the breeding on that. If I was you, I don't know if you know, are you familiar with a guy called Cody Kopp?
Cody Cobb.
He's on the Tree Monitor Facebook page.
I don't think I am,
I'll,
honestly.
I'll
I
send
never
you
really
some
go
of
on
his
Facebook.
stuff.
Okay.
He seems to be able to breed pretty much anything, but he's very heavy on the drying them out, not
The
feeding
cycling.
them, and calling them. But yeah,
Interesting. Yeah, that sounds interesting because that's what I had read that people will do, like that kind of cycle, but I didn't know. I didn't really know. I mean, I kind of assumed that that's what happened in Indonesia, but that was really. I'm glad you told me all that. That was interesting to me.
yeah.
Because
But it's what,
that would make sense to me. I like to try to mimic the natural environment as much as possible. That's kind of always what I shoot for. Like one of the things that I'm pretty big on. Uh, well, I mean, I've seen people have success doing lay boxes in the bottom of the enclosure. Like there's plenty of people that will have success doing that. However, I feel like because I've noticed that my tree monitors, like if I walk in the room and they're below the halfway point, they freak out and run up to the top. Like I don't even have to do anything. Like just walking in the room
yeah,
freaks them out being below. So in my head, I wouldn't think with how smart they are that a female is going to want to deposit her young below the midpoint. And like when you read a lot of reports, it always talks about them laying their clutches in termite mounds.
yeah,
So I'm really trying. I don't know if you're familiar with Father Blue on
yeah.
Instagram.
He's going to be a
Yeah,
guest one day on the podcast. So yeah,
awesome. That's
yeah.
very cool. Yeah, he's a great dude. But yeah, he's making me some arboreal
Termite
like
mounts.
nest
Yeah, yeah.
boxes.
I've
Yeah,
seen
yeah,
them.
yeah.
Yeah,
Like
yeah. Sick.
yeah, they're super cool. So I'm excited for those to come in and try those out because I think that would be another thing that is pretty crucial to like getting some um, viable eggs
Yes.
from your clutches or from your females.
Yeah.
But yeah, yeah, the drying them out is interesting to me. I think I am gonna try it. Regardless, I think I'm gonna do that this year. Regardless if I get eggs or not. That sounds like something I would want to do to be honest. And it makes it a little easier. I mean, I just have to feed them less. But uh but
Yeah, that's
yeah.
what I
Oh
do. I do with my
yeah.
mangrove. I don't do it June to September because that's our summer. So
Mhm.
obviously it's not so in the UK our climate's pretty rubbish for 7 months of the year. It rains and then we have a bit of sun for 3 months. But what I do in is our winter when we have the heating on, obviously the heating dries out the house.
Mhm.
But also it's cold, so that benefits me because it's drier and it's cold. So I use the winter as my dry season because obviously you get the barometric pressure from natural rain outside. So I'm sort of shooting myself in the foot with that. But it seems to work with my mangrove, and
Yeah.
I know that Cody Cop. I don't know Cody Cop. I've just seen some of his posts on Facebook. He's an American guy, but he does cork tubes filled with soil and he suspends them and
Mhm.
he gets. But then my friend who breeds Bracinus does ground nest boxes, so both can work.
Yeah, exactly.
But yeah,
Yeah.
that's a good point. I like I say, I'm hopefully one day I'll be breeding tree monitors, but I'm not
Mhm.
there yet. But it's good. It's good food. That's why I started the podcast. So basically, just so everyone can sort of
Yeah.
bounce off each other. People that are looking to breed tree monitors can. I
Mhm.
find there's a website called timeanddate.com, and you can basically type in anywhere in the world and it will give you a
Uh-huh.
printout of the temperature and the humidity and average
Oh
of the
wow.
year. So I do that for a lot of my stuff and then I just flip
Okay.
it to because obviously there's southern hemisphere, we're northern hemisphere. So I just
Yeah.
flip it to try and make it work. So like my mangrove hasn't been sprayed in like 5 days.
Oh wow. Okay.
But she's got a big
Interesting.
water bowl, so she can get, and she's got a big
Yeah.
nest box, so she can find
Hmm.
humid microclimates. I haven't
For
sprayed
sure.
her. I was supposed to spray her today, if I'm honest, but
Mhm.
I got waylaid today, so she'll get sprayed tomorrow.
Yeah. Yeah. Stuff
Everyone
like
in,
that's usually
yeah, it's,
monitors like as it is important to like be on top of it, but like missing a day here and there is totally fine. I mean,
no, I don't have
yeah.
a true routine purely because I cycle them. So like
Hmm.
I'll have a routine in the sense of I'm feeding this on that day and this on that day, but it changes weekly because I'm
Yep.
always evolving with my cycle.
That's kind of what I do too. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm never like pen to paper, like have this planned. Like sometimes a new idea will come to me, and that's why like I love like I'm super glad that you invited me on this because I love just talking about like monitors in general, or just lizards in general, and just bouncing ideas off of other people. Because I mean, you're never gonna like perfectly mimic nature in
No.
your own in an enclosure or anything like that. So it's just like there's no for sure right way. I mean, there is like obviously there's like a gauge of like what is correct of like temperatures, humidity, stuff like that. But like there's for stuff like breeding habits and socializing, and there's no real right answer. And I think that's just because of how different each individual lizard is. So that's why I just like getting as many opinions as I can. And I'm never gonna like tell somebody, no, that's incorrect because I do it
Yeah.
this way and it works for me. Like if you do it a different way and it works for you, that's fantastic. Yeah, it's purely it's all random. It's all up to the individual lizard. They're all different.
Yeah,
And
exactly.
yeah.
Yeah, so just before we move on to the other species you keep, is there anything else you would like to
Mhm.
touch on, either ask me or address that I may have forgotten? Because again, people that don't know, my podcasts aren't planned. This is just two guys who love lizards having a conversation about lizards.
Mhm.
So before I skip on to your black dragon, as well as just
Mhm.
a little bit on the Aki, is there anything that you'd either like to ask me or you want to touch on for people listening for tree monitors?
Um, let's see. No, I think we pretty much hit it all. Yeah, other than me saying in the future, I'm hoping to I might have a contact for some Varanus bohemi, the gold
Oh,
spotters.
nice. Yeah,
So
yeah.
if I can get me some of those, stay tuned
Yeah,
because those are my favorites. Those and the Biocs.
yeah.
Oh man, so cool. But yeah, I think we pretty much touched on all of it. Everything I'd
Okay.
say.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I think so. I love Bohemia. I love Cordensis, the BX as well.
Oh
Um,
yeah.
yeah, we don't
Yeah.
have Bohemia here. I don't think there might be a couple
Mhm.
like underground. But
Mhm.
we do have Cordensis, but they're quite
Yeah.
rare. But yeah, they're just the coloration on the biax for me and the scalation
Yep.
patterns for yeah,
Yep.
they're
They're easily my favorite coloration and
yeah.
pattern. Easily. They're on and like some of them can be more dull than others I've seen. Oh, actually, I do want to tell you one more thing about
Yeah,
that
yeah,
really
go
quick.
ahead, man. Go ahead.
I actually had around what was it now? Like probably like a year and a half ago.
Hmm.
I had a baby Biak tree monitor on its way to me,
Oh, nice.
and it got stuck in the mail in like Dallas. The
Oh
package
man.
got stuck, and so the guy like rerouted it to himself because that's usually faster. And when the baby got back to him, it had died in the route, and I was so upset because that still to this day that's the only Biak I've ever seen for sale here,
Damn,
and
man.
yeah, that was a bummer. But
Yeah.
fingers crossed on these gold spotters. That would be incredible. But yeah, some of those Vioks, like they're if you get the true colorations, like they have like a blue tail,
Yeah.
green body, yellow head. It's like a mix of all of them, but then they have way more black, like almost like spider web patterning on their
Yeah, I know what you
backs, and
mean. Yeah, yeah. They're stunning lizards.
so
They're a
cool,
stunning
so
lizard.
cool.
They are a
Yeah.
stunning lizard. But also, speaking of stunning lizards, we're not going to go into them just yet because they're not technically monitors, but you do keep Lamphanotis,
Mm-hmm.
the Borneo earless monitors. So we're going to touch on those. Just a little teaser for everyone who's this far in. But we'll stick to true monitors for now. So you have the only other monitors you have, correct me if I'm wrong, the Aki and then a young black dragon.
Yes, correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
So obviously the Aki is the outlier here, being Audatria and Australian.
Mm-hmm.
Just before we get onto the Black Dragon, because I'm sure most people will care about that over Aki's. Poor Aki's never get enough love. But I personally adore my Akis. I find them incredibly personable. I find them incredibly underrated, even though they're a very commonly kept monitor. They don't get enough love. And I find their mannerisms and boisterousness very enjoyable.
Mm-hmm.
What do you think? If you had someone, let me ask the question this way. Obviously, someone's going to look at you and see you've got all these amazing lizards, or me and see I've got all these amazing lizards. But they don't know what monitor they want. Would you sway them to an Aki, or would you sway them to something else?
So I'm really glad you asked that one too. So that's one of my favorite things to do at work is whenever people come in and they're like, "Oh, I want a Savannah monitor." That's the most common thing is people want to come in and buy the Savannah monitor. It's cheap, it's little now, and then they're like, "Oh, it'll calm down in the future." I always steer people. I'm like, "Listen, if you want a monitor, what you want is an Ackie monitor. They're easy to keep because they're small. However, even though they're a smaller species of monitor, I'd say some of the other like Australian dwarf monitors do have a bit more confidence for like a smaller monitor species.
Yeah,
But the Ackies in particular, I feel like, I mean, I've never worked with like the pill bars or like um, the Tristis, like you were saying. Well, they're not
yeah.
really or yeah,
They're
are they?
they're
Yeah.
Audacia. They're the biggest Audacia we can keep. Glebal Palmer
Okay.
is the biggest, but we can't keep those. But yeah, so I don't know what US has, but you'd have like your Kimberleys, your Mulga
Hmm.
monitors, your Tristus,
Yep.
obviously Aki's, Varana's Storai, Kingorum. So they're all the
Kingdoms. Yeah.
common Audacia, but yeah, they are Audacia.
Got you. Okay, yeah. So yeah, I've noticed like the Ackies, like when they're little, they can be a little flighty, but as soon as they become adults, I mean, they just have so much like confidence and they're so fun. And if you work with them just like any other monitor, they can become really handleable. Like my little dude he was for a while, he was really nervous, really skittish, but I just tell people like you can't give up. Like
Yeah.
you can't be like I don't like when people come in and they're like, "Oh, I can't do this for my lizard." Like you can, like trust me. You gotta stay with it. Like just stick to the routine. Eventually they're gonna realize what you're doing and start doing it with ease. Like it'll just happen overnight pretty much. Like just one day they'll try it and then the next day they'll try it and then it's just history from there. But yeah, Aki's just make such good pets. Like mine is he's so fun. You kind of have to have food sometimes, like to get him out at first, but then once you start getting him food, I mean you can just take him out, pet him on the chin. The only thing I'll say is, and this is kind of on me, I should probably kind of target train him better. I just didn't really like. I'm target training my black dragon right now because I don't want him thinking fingers are food when he's an
Yeah.
adult. But the Aki, I didn't really think about it because like he's just a small dwarf monitor. But
Yeah.
sometimes if I move my finger a little too quick, he'll definitely get me on the finger, and it's fine. But like other than that, I mean, he's so chill. I love Aki monitors, and another thing that I like to really fight for, at least in the US, it's very common for people to keep Ackie monitors in like 40-gallon tanks with like
Yeah.
2 inches of substrate. No, like you need to be giving them at least like a foot or two of substrate to be digging all around. I mean, they're just a burrowing species of monitor. They love to dig all around. I mean, my little guy is in what's he in, a 4 by 2 by 3, and he's got
Hmm.
like 2 feet of dirt, and he just has tunnels and caverns all throughout it. And I mean, I love Ackie monitors. I agree with you. They are, I mean, they are kept pretty frequently, but they're definitely underrated. Like I totally try to persuade everybody to get an Ackie, a yellow or red, over a Savannah monitor or any other like starter monitor. Like
Yeah.
some people
Yeah.
would say
Yeah.
Niles or starters. Like just because they're $80 in your pet store or something like that. It's like
Yeah. No. No.
no,
No.
yeah.
And Nile will be 4 foot in a year and try and take your finger off every chance it gets.
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
Yeah. And
Same with most green iguanas too. I know we'll stick on monitors, but that's another thing that I'm big on
yeah, no,
because
but
I love.
I don't mind touching on iguanas. I'll be honest, my knowledge on iguanas outside of just the basic knowledge, I've never kept them. I really like God, I'm forgetting the Latin name. Cyclora. I really like Cyclora. I really like again. I wanted to say Shinosaurus, but it's not Shinosaurus because they're crocodile lizards.
Shins. Oh, love those.
The like the Mexican spiny tail
Oh,
iguanas.
what's there? It's the C
It's
silent. It's C
it's
silent. It's Tina. Is that? I
something.
always
It's
forget how
something
to
like that.
say
It's
it.
literally on the tip of my
Yeah,
tongue, and it's annoying me.
I think it's Tinosaurus. I think that's how you say it. I know how to. I can like see the word in my mind. It's just
I
that
know
there's
the
like a
last
C
bit's
in front of it.
similis. But yeah.
Oh,
Anyway, those.
okay.
I'm
Yeah,
gonna Google it because it's annoying me.
yeah.
Um,
No, you're good.
and then I really like pectinata. So we can touch on
Mm,
just quickly what species of iguana do you keep? Because you said you have your iguana, which is obviously the albino version,
mhm.
and then you said you have some sort of cyclora as well. No.
Yeah, so I have four iguanas or green iguanas, and then I have two Lewisi hybrids,
Yeah.
Cyclura. So they're just a cross between like a normal rock iguana and a Grand Cayman lizard. And yeah, so oh man, I love iguanas. Cyclura in particular are in my opinion, Cyclura are definitely the best pet iguanas.
Hmm.
Outside of getting, in my opinion, an albino iguana, you can't get a more tame lizard than an albino green iguana for sure. Like I'll guarantee everybody, like outside of like maybe being a little flighty as a baby, they'll be 100% docile, chill, comfortable with handling as soon as they're an adult. And it's the Cyclura. I mean, they're a close second though. So mine were a little flighty as babies, but just hand feeding is the key for them as well. Like just food is always the motivator. Like you
Yeah.
always, if you're gonna socialize your lizard, it's just hand feeding. Try to get in their presence with food as much as you can. So like I hand feed all my iguanas. The only mean lizard I have out of my entire collection, actually, the only one that I like can't handle in one way or another is my male blue iguana. So I do I do warn people, like if you get a green iguana, be mindful of where you're getting it from, because if you're wanting this as a pet and you're getting a male green, I can guarantee you 100%, 10 out of 10 times, that male green iguana, no matter how social it is as a baby or even as a juvenile, as soon as it hits its first or second or third, probably all three breeding seasons, it is going to go berserk and
Yeah.
attack everything. Like it's going to lose its mind. And that's exactly how my blue is. I mean, he was chill as a baby. Like I handled him pretty frequently. He would definitely have some sass. Like he'd open his mouth and stuff, and I just try to calm him down and tail whip me every now and then. But like it got to the point where like I didn't even have to restrain him. Like I could just scoop him out, and then he'd let me pet him. But like if my finger got a little too close to his head, he'd kind of rear up and
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
jump back. But my I have a female green iguana that's just normal green. She's het for albino. So I'm planning to hopefully breed her in the future. But I got her from Tom Crutchfield. I don't know if I'm
Yeah. I've
sure
heard of him. Yeah.
yeah, he's big in the US.
Yeah.
And he's actually the one that like first produced albinos, crimson albinos and the super crimson albinos, I think. I don't know that he
Yeah.
did the snows first, but yeah, so she is from him, and she's like a seventh or eighth generation captive bred. So I'd say that's probably the only reason that she's as chill as she is as of
Yeah.
now. I also have put in like a ridiculous amount of work with her. Like I handle her for like multiple hours every day because like I want to make sure she stays the way she is. Um, but but yeah, I iguanas are very underrated pets. The Cyclura too, they're just big puppies. As soon as they get out of that, like it's not even, they don't even have really like a teenage phase. Like as soon as they're out of that baby phase, they kind of really just mellow out. Like it was like within a few days for mine. Like they just went from sprinting across the enclosure every time I'd come in with the food dish to then just
Yeah.
like they slowly walk up and eat right out of my hand and stuff. And now they're great. They can be flighty if I take them out here, and like this is like my reptile room is kind of like it's my old childhood bedroom.
Hmm.
So I had like a like kind of like a living room area out here, and then I had the actual like where my bed was. So most of the lizards are in there, and then I have a shed out back that I call my iguana shed. That's
Hmm.
where all the iguanas are. So like I'll bring my Lewis eyes are inside though, and so I'll bring them out here into the living room. They'll be chilling for a little while, and then I saw the light will hit them wrong or something, and they'll just start taking off, turn back to wild animals. So I have to corral them back into their enclosures, but then they're fine. So I just gotta. I've read a lot about how that's very common with especially like Cyclura. So you kind of just have to train them to be used to being outside of the enclosure and stuff.
Yeah.
Then they're fine. But yeah, I highly recommend them as pets, especially the greens, because the greens exhibit so much intelligence. Like they are such smart lizards. They're not they're not talked about enough about how smart they are. Like they're really slept on for how much intelligence they really have, I would say.
Yeah,
But
it's in the UK, so green iguanas, they are here. There's a couple of albinos here, and then there's a few blue or axanthic here. The problem I find with iguanas is most people get them and then put them in like a 6x6x2, whereas a big male green iguana can get 6 foot, if not a little bit over. We can't keep them outside. Well, I don't know if you've seen this. This is quite interesting. There's a guy called Dougie Smith. He lives in Ireland, which is just a tiny little island off the UK. And he has 3 green iguanas that live with a troop of lemurs in a massive, like humongous, bigger than my entire reptile room, half indoor, half outdoor. Yes, and he's got pictures on the Advanced Herpetological Husbandry and Research, whatever, Facebook page, of his green iguanas, because they have inside and outside. They'll come outside when it's snowing and they'll bask at like 2 degrees. And they have the option to go inside. So it's not like he's throwing them out in the cold. They actively have chosen to like come outside and bask whilst it was like 3 degrees or 2 degrees or something silly like that. If I can find the post, I'll send it to you after this, because it boggles my mind. But yeah, outdoor keeping for the most part isn't really feasible in the UK. And the problem is when you start to get into big lizards, like iguanas or varanids, anything over, I'm going to say 3 foot, anything over 3 foot tends to just get thrown in a small enclosure. It's still a big enclosure for something like an Aki or a pectinata or something like that. But the problem is, I'm sure it's the same. I know it's the same in the US because I've seen pictures and people message me. So that's my biggest pet peeve when it comes to big lizards. Don't get me wrong. I'm glad that you're shining a light on them and being like, oh my God, they're great. They're amazing. I just worry. And it's like when I evangelize how great mangrove monitors are. I'm like, I love my mangrove monitor. She's amazing. Oh my God, look how cool this is. And you only talk about the good stuff. And then someone like messaged me. I'm like, I just got a mangrove monitor, dude. Check this out. And then it's in a tiny little enclosure. And I'm like, oh my God, I'm so sorry. So I just think it's important to always say both sides of the coin, just because my mangrove monitor, she's harder to keep. So I have 24 monitor lizards. My mangrove is obviously one of 23 of them are easier than just my one mangrove. Like, she is hard work. Like, don't get me wrong, she's amazing and I love her and she's my favorite, but she is hard work. But then I don't want to lead with that, because the problem is I love them. So to me, it's all love. And I'm like, oh, I just love doing this and this is great and this is that. But she is a nightmare. But I think that's why I love her. But so I don't want to, like I say, I don't want people to look at mangrove monitors and be like, they're great. Oh my God, they're so great. Like, Paul's so in love with his, I'm going to be in love with mine. And then after a year, it's still evil and tries to kill you. And obviously they're not evil. They're just defensive and scared. But yeah, I know a guy who I did my first podcast with, Rango Scaff. He doesn't keep monitors, but we just did a podcast just to sort of like shoot the ship and figure it all out. He's just got a trio of, I believe, I don't know the genetics. He did tell me and I forget, but basically they're axanthic het. Is it het albino makes snows?
Het albino xanthics make snows. Yes.
Yeah, so he's got a trio of those. He's got 3 axanthics that are allegedly all het albino. So yeah, and he's real into his iguanas. And he's going to try and make some snows here in the UK. And me and him had a conversation about it. Because again, I like to play devil's advocate, even if I don't agree with the other side of the coin. I just always like to put it out there. I said to him, like, where are they going to go? It's like if I ever bred mangrove monitors, there's no bloody mangroves in the UK, so I don't know if I'll ever breed them. But if I ever bred mangrove monitors, where are they going to go? Because the reality is they're all going to get stuck in 4x2x2s or like a 6x2x2. so there's always that ethics in the back of my mind and where they're all going to go. And he said he's probably going to end up exporting most over to like Europe and bits and bobs like that. But I think it is important to talk on that side, because the problem is, can you keep outside certain species in Arizona? Because obviously it's hot.
Yeah, so you can keep some species outside. Some people definitely do it successfully. It depends. It's not even really the summers that are more the problem. It's well, the summers can be a problem definitely for like you could never keep anything tropical outside in the summer. Like
Yeah,
you could spray it with humidity all day long, but the reality is in June, July, it's gonna get 118 degrees outside, and that thing's gonna fry
yeah,
for
and it's
sure. Like
hot.
there's
Yeah,
no, yeah, it gets very hot here. So yeah, no, I 100% agree with you that it's important to shed that light because like as much as I like to say like green iguanas are great pets, I disapprove of the price point of them just because strictly it promotes having them priced as low as they're priced everywhere just promotes them being like, oh, this is an easy animal to buy. Like it's the price of a bearded dragon. It must be like the
yeah,
same difficulty. When that is not the case at all, and that's how you end up with places like Florida here, which I'm sure you've
yeah. I've heard of,
heard
yeah,
about. Yeah, like I mean, the whole ecosystem is getting absolutely destroyed by three species. Well, a lot of different species,
yeah,
but
yeah, yeah,
mainly the three is Burmese pythons, reticulated pythons, and green iguanas. And
yeah,
some tegus are also causing problems. But it's all the reason that think about it is like those are the most popular cheap lizards. So a lot of people, when herp culture was first getting big here, would buy those lizards, buy those snakes, and be like, "Oh, look at this cute little guy that I just got for $40 at my pet store." And then 2 years later, the thing is, if it's an iguana, it's 6 foot, and it's trying to kill you. And then you have
yeah,
the retics and berms that are getting like 10, 15 feet easily. Like, yeah, it's just so then they just release them into the wild, and it creates a nightmare. And so yeah, as much as I like to advocate the green iguanas are good pets, it's like you have to be prepared. Like this is like it's a herbivorous monitor lizard practically. Like
yeah, exactly.
it's
Yeah,
just as intelligent. It needs just as much space. The albinos, I actually like to tell people, they're like a whole different lizard. Like you can't keep an albino green iguana the same way you keep a normal green iguana because of their lack of eyesight. Like
yeah,
some of them, it ranges between like 40 to 60% loss of eyesight, which is quite substantial. So like I'd say my normal albino, excuse me, I'd say he's more like a 40%. He seems to see a bit better. He's more likely to find his food dish. Like
yeah,
they like to bite around it a lot. Whereas my super crimson, I'd say he is more like 60% because he has some troubles. So it's you can't set up like super intricate climbing, like all sorts of tree branches and stuff going all around the enclosure because they'll fall. Like they'll just lose their grip
yeah,
and fall, or they'll freak out. Whereas my green female and my blue iguana, I mean, they just have huge enclosures to crawl all around in. And yeah, it's so talking about enclosure size for them. So at least in my experience for the albinos, I mean, they're like a dog. So like I'm taking my big albino male because he's now outgrowing he's been in what's he in, a 4 foot by 3 foot by 6 foot tall enclosure.
hmm,
And he's now about like 4.5, 5 feet, so he's getting pretty big.
yeah,
And so I'm gonna move him over into. We have like these little stair closets underneath my staircases in my new house,
hmm,
and I'm just gonna set up a masking light and a fogger and a nice big branch or two in there, and just put him in there like a dog, just let
yeah,
him roam
yeah,
around the house and stuff with us. So that I think is yeah, making sure you have the space is a big thing. I've been thinking long and hard about that with my Black Dragon, especially because I know like how much of a commitment it is, and I
yeah,
love Black Dragons, and like I have a few years until I have to worry about like him being like 4 or 5 feet if it's a male or female, depending.
yeah. Because they can get
But
7 foot being a male. Like some, I've seen
oh
some black
yeah,
dragons that are 7, 8 foot long. Like they're
for sure. Oh yeah,
big.
they can be a lot smaller than Asian water monitors, but like the normal Asian water monitors at least.
Yeah.
But typically, I mean, it depends. It depends how diluted the black
Yes.
dragon
Yeah,
is,
and if they're
because a lot
crosses
of
and stuff, yeah.
yeah, a lot of them are like het black dragon het. whatever you call the, yeah. But yeah, I'm right there with you. As much as I want to promote these animals as being great pets, some of them are not for everybody because you have to
No.
make sure you are giving them the best life possible and the best requirements and everything. So yeah, I'm glad you shine light on both sides of the coin for sure.
Yeah, I like to keep it like I say, even if I don't agree with the other side of the coin, I always like to look at the other side of the coin.
Hmm.
Because no matter who's watching this, they're going to be on one side or the other. So I like to
Hmm.
address both. One, to try and avoid haters, which I'm going to get anyway. Um
Yeah.
and two, that is, I'm really into like philosophy and ethos and ethics. And like, for example, I'll touch on this now. I knew albino iguanas did lose their sight, but you're saying 40 to 60%. I won't lie, the first thing that popped into my mind is this ethical for us to do that?
I've thought about that too, for sure.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Because I didn't know it was that bad. I knew it was a case, but in my head it was like 20 to 30%. But I don't keep them and never kept them. I don't know.
Yeah, it can be less. I wouldn't like nobody come after me on
No, no,
exact
no, no.
numbers, but yeah, it can be like my crimson, for example. I can definitely tell a difference between like my normal albino and my super crimson. Like he just has much less eyesight. And I agree with you on that, and I 100% have thought about that, and that's kind of why because originally I wanted to get into breeding albino iguanas, and then like the more I looked into it, the more I realized I don't really want to be a and honestly, I don't have a problem with it. I mean, like I just personally don't think it's what I would want to do because I don't know if it's necessarily. I just like to think keep things natural, but like stacking genes and like breeding siblings and stuff like that to get morphs and different stuff
Yeah.
like that. I don't necessarily agree with as much as I love my albino iguanas and like I'm not gonna like hate on anybody like oh you're breeding paper white zeros because paper white zero bearded dragons can also be like a deadly morph. Like if you cross a
Okay.
paper white zero to a paper white zero, like
Yeah.
it's not good. So that's kind of why I really have also fallen in love with the tree monitors because there's so many natural variations of them. Like
Yes.
you have the gold spotteds, the Biox, the canopy goannas, the yellow trees, the black trees, the green trees. Like there's so many and they're all naturally occurring like actual different species too.
Yeah.
So it's like I would rather I would rather breed stuff like that is also like maybe not endangered, but just not common and could be like, for example, the black trees. That
Yes.
actually, that is sorry to go back real quick,
No,
but
no, it's fine. You carry on. Carry on.
I did want to actually mention this about the black trees. I've noticed that there is a lot more people breeding all three of the other common colors, like the greens, the blues, the yellows. There's a lot more people breeding those three than there is the black trees.
Yeah.
And that's a big reason that I wanted to get a pair of blacks because the blacks are actually definitely the most endangered out of like all of like those four at least. I mean, their natural range is only like 100 yards now or something like that. Like it has been completely wiped out because
Decimated.
yeah, they built a whole resort on the island that the black trees come from. So they
Yeah.
just have completely wiped out their habitat. And in the next few years, I mean, we could seriously be looking at like the black tree monitor becoming extinct in the wild. And so like
Yeah.
I love breeding them for that or having a pair for that reason and hopefully breeding them in the future because that's in my mind I know like I'm adding more to the population of the black trees. I'm making a difference for them. Like they're still going to be around so like if my kid wants to have a pet black tree monitor, he can have a pet black tree
Yeah.
monitor. And I love the black trees. I think they're the most underrated tree monitors. I like them a lot. Yeah,
I think they're my
they're very
favorite.
cool.
I
Oh, really?
Yeah,
Wow.
I think so. Like I saw green trees. So I'm 28. I saw green
Hmm.
trees for the first time 21 years ago. I was around 7, and I saw
Wow.
one in a reptile magazine. And ever since then, I was infatuated. And I was like, one day I will own these
Mm-hmm.
monitors. And for the last 10, 11 years, I've been keeping reptiles. I never brought one because they were always out of my price range, but they used to be like
Hmm.
£700
Yep.
back when. Now they're like
Hmm.
£2,000.
Oh yeah,
So I
easily.
decided to get 3 when they're like £2,000, rather than getting them at
Yeah.
£700. But anyway, it's not about the money, it's about the like passion.
Exactly.
because if it was about the money, I would have done it 10 years ago. But
Yeah.
yeah, I've always loved black. So I don't know what it is. I have an affinity towards black and green animals.
Mhm.
But I think it's the size. So when you see a big, healthy, big
Mhm.
Varanus beckeri, the black tree, just the
Mhm.
head and sheer mass of it. I know they're not quite as big as the blues. Some can rival, but the blues being the biggest. But
Mhm.
because everyone picks blues. I mean,
Yep.
after seeing your yellows, I'm very, very into yellows, because
Yeah,
normally
thank
yellows
you.
are quite drab and boring, but your like yellows are stunning.
Thank you.
But yeah, everyone goes to blue because obviously blue is not a very common color in nature. And when you do get a
Mhm.
true McRae that is very blue, they are, oh my God, like wow. But
Yeah, for sure.
and black trees, they can be a bit drab. They can be, and they can go like grey as they get older. But for
Mhm.
some reason, for me, the black tree, like my friend, like I say, he's just picked up a baby, and the baby's still so young, it's still got the spots.
That's so
Yeah,
cool.
so I'll get goosebumps when I think about it. I don't even own it. Um, but yeah,
Yeah.
when I went round there so 3 months ago, I went to his place to get Cada, and his black trees were, I don't know, like iPhone 13 Pro for reference, just a
Okay.
little bit
Yeah, yeah.
bigger. And now
So cool.
they're like 3 times the size. And it's only been like 3 or 4 months. And they've literally just
Yeah.
like all of a sudden developed like this big, and they jump onto
Mhm.
him, especially the male. And I was like, man, you got to breed these one day so I can get me some black trees.
Mhm. Yeah, that's so awesome.
But yeah, I do agree. The reality is I mean, we might, and I don't want to speak to never, but the reality is if they go extinct in the wild, we probably won't repopulate. It might happen one day.
Mhm.
But just having a diverse bloodline in captivity of any species doesn't matter if they're endangered in the wild, but it's more so important if they're endangered in the wild. For example, mangrove monitors in the UK. Now the UK it left the European Union. So basically, just for people in the US that don't understand and don't care, your UK used to be part of mainland Europe in the sense of government and bodies and fair trade and bits and bobs.
Okay, yeah, yeah,
Sort of like I don't know the US, but like you can ship something from Alaska to Florida.
yeah. Mhm.
No dramas. We could send something from Germany to England, no dramas. But now
Mm.
we can't, because everyone in the UK thought it was a great idea to leave and stand alone and make Britain great again. I mean, I voted to stay. Come at me. I don't care. But anyway, so long story short, now obviously Monitor Society's Appendix 2 animals, they can't travel oceans without paperwork. And then getting paperwork from originally wild caught animals and stuff like that is just so complicated. So basically,
Mhm.
once what we have in the UK is gone, if no one has really, really deep pockets, we won't get, like, we can't get mangroves here unless all of a sudden someone gets a shipment in with CITES. But Solomon Islands aren't really doing imports anymore, and monitors have to be like can't be over a certain snout to vent length nowadays to be able to get them here. And all other stuff. So long story short, if people don't breed, then we're going to lose these animals, and my great
Mhm.
grandkids won't be able to enjoy. Like I've told the story in a podcast, but I'll tell it now because it's relevant. We went to the London Aquarium. So London's our capital city, and we went to the aquarium, and I saw a sea turtle for the first time. I've never seen a sea turtle in real life before, and they had a
Oh,
sea
okay.
turtle. They had it because we don't have them like off our shores and bits and bobs.
Mm.
And I've never been anywhere to go and look for them. I've been to Florida, but I was a lot younger, and we didn't go to look for animals. We just went to Disney and stuff. But anyway,
Mhm.
I saw this turtle, and I literally and then another turtle came over, and they ended up like started to mate. I was just crying, like actually just crying, like not like ooh, but like I had tears like coming down my eyes. And
Yeah.
my girlfriend, she was like, "You're right," and I was like, "One, how beautiful is this? And two, like I may never see this in the wild because humans are
Mhm.
horrible and they're destroying the planet." Um, so yeah, it is important that we have these insurance populations. But speaking on obviously endangered CITES animals, I believe they're CITES Appendix 1. I could be wrong. Lanthanotis, the Borneo
Yes.
earless monitors.
Mhm.
I
Yes.
mean, I don't know how long, I'm just checking. I think we're nearly at the 2 hour mark, and we're fine. We'll still keep going. But I want to talk on these because there are a couple dotted around here in the UK. but they're a very unique animal. How long have you had it?
Yes, they are super unique. I've had mine for a little over a month now, so not
Not
terribly
long.
long at all. Yeah, and I've known about them for like multiple years, and easily like the first time I saw them, I was like I just saw a photo. I didn't even need to know anything about them. I was like, oh my
Yeah,
God, this
hooked.
is the coolest thing I've ever seen in my life. Like this is so cool. And so I read all about them and everything, and I was like, oh, they're endangered. I was like, dang. I was kind of hoping maybe I'd be able to get one day. And then I saw Mason Barnes, actually, was the first person I saw. I don't know if you know who he is.
I've seen his stuff, yeah.
Yeah, he's pretty big here in the US. And yeah, so I saw him get a pair of them, and I was like like blown away. I was like, there is no way that you can get those here in the US. So I saw that, I was blown away, like didn't really think anything of it. And then around well, like a month ago when I got him, I was checking Morph Market actually to look. I don't know if do you guys have is Morph Market
We
over
have Morph Market. It's nowhere near as big in the UK, but
okay.
we do have Morph Market, yeah.
Got you. Okay. Yeah. So I was on Morph Market and I was in like the other lizard section, which is like never a section that I'd ever really go on. And I was looking for this pair of black tree monitors that one of my coworkers was talking about. So like I was looking for it at work and I didn't see it, or I didn't see the Lantha notice posted. And so then I get home like an hour later and I pull it up and I right when I open it, it's the top post. And I'm like, oh, Borneo earless monitor. And I was like, wait a minute. I was like, Borneo
Read it
earless
twice,
monitor.
yeah.
Yeah. So I go back up and I'm like, holy crap. And so I messaged the guy right away. I'm like, and his asking price wasn't even terrible. Like, obviously it was high, but like
Yeah,
for what it is, I mean, it was not bad. And so I get to talking with him. He sends me all these videos. I'm like, oh my God, I can't even believe this is real.
yeah.
And then fast forward, like, what, like 4 or 5 days later, I had him in my hand. I was like, I couldn't even believe it. I mean, yeah, he's easily the coolest animal. He's doing fantastic too. It was such a breath of relief that he is like very easygoing and like
Yeah,
doesn't stress easy, especially me being like a tree monitor keeper. I'm so used to like I gotta hold my breath for like a month and a half until this thing starts eating off
yeah.
the tongs and like trusting me and drinking. But no, like I mean I had him and then within the first day he was crushing night crawlers off the tongs and he lets me pick him up sometimes when he's swimming out of the water. Doesn't seem to mind it at all. And yeah, he's doing fantastic. So I've done a lot of research on them because it's I mean there's not a lot on them obviously.
No, no.
But like the Terrarium channel, I think he's located. I know he's in Europe. I don't know
Yeah,
if
he
he's
breeds
in.
them, yeah. I forget his
Yeah,
name, but yeah, I know who you're on
um,
about.
yeah, I forget his name too. But I watched a ton of his videos, learned a lot from him, and then I've actually gotten to know Mason Barnes pretty well over these past couple weeks since I've
Yeah.
gotten the Borneo, and he's kind of helped me a bit with them. And now actually I'm getting so I think mine is a male. I'm not 100% sure yet. He's still a little young, but I'm pretty sure it's a male based off what I've read. The differences between the two are.
How do you sex them?
So it's mainly based off of it's easier if you have like two individuals next to each other, like a clutch or something. But typically the males will have more of like a bell-shaped head and have like bigger jowls, or not jowl, like jaw muscles or jaw
Yeah, yeah.
bones.
Yeah, I know what you mean.
And
Yeah.
yeah, and they'll also have like more pronounced osteoderms, which are like the spikes on their neck and stuff.
Yeah.
And so I'm thinking based off of that, you can also, when they're old enough, I think you can pop out their hemipenes. I would rather not
Yeah,
do it with
I know
with
what you
that kind
mean.
of lizard.
Yeah.
But yeah, especially because I don't want to get bit by them either. I've heard like they are venomous and it's not like a Gila. It's not as bad as a Gila monster bite, but it's also not like as mild as like your like rock monitor venom or anything
Hmm.
like that. So like I've heard it can kind of hurt a bit, but I'll probably find out one day. But for now, I'd like to at least avoid it. But yeah, I think mine's a male, and I recently have made a contact who has some females for sale. So I'm planning to hopefully get a female in the next couple weeks. So that will be
That's
a
very exciting.
huge breeding project if I
Yeah.
can manage to do that. But but yeah, it's honestly not a terribly difficult lizard to keep, I would say. Other than having to like really dive into like the aquatics side of reptile keeping, or not really reptile keeping, like just aquatics in general, I
Yeah.
guess. But I had to learn like a lot in like a short span of time, but I'd say now I definitely know what I'm doing, but like it was a little stressful at first, but yeah, I mean, I've pretty much got it down. The only thing that you really have to worry about with the Lanthanus, outside of like obviously getting them to eat and stuff, is they are very prone to getting this fungal infection around their eyes and their nose. And
Hmm.
it'll kind of grow on their face, and it looks like they're shedding, but and it looks like a calcium buildup almost, but it's not. It's a fungus that will kill them. And so for a while, it's been like there's not really a for sure like this is how you cure it or this is how you prevent it answer. However, I've talked to a few different people that like know vets that know a lot about them or like have worked with them themselves. And from what I've seen, one of the only things that you really kind of have to make sure of, and also I also talked to some of the fish people about this because they kind of just like based off what they know about freshwater animals, they were like, you should probably include what are called almond leaf tannins, or it's like beta. There's like a couple different names for it. It's like just the beta fish leaves. It's tannins in the water that it, like if you've seen any of my videos, the water kind of has like that yellowish tint,
Yeah, I know what you mean.
yellow oranges. So you actually really want that. So if they were in clear water, um, for example, like a lot of beta, like for beta fish, which is why it's called beta fish tannins. If you don't have those tannins in the water, if it's just pure like water, no matter if the pH is balanced or whatnot, if it doesn't matter about the hardness. If you don't have those tannins in there, they'll break out in blisters and infections all over their body. So, from what I've read and like talked to a bunch of different people about, is those almond leaf tannins seem to be the preventative like factor into preventing like the fungus and stuff. And to
Yeah.
me, that makes a lot of sense based off what I've read about their natural environment, because that's the main thing that I kind of like went off of when I was designing his enclosure and getting all the measurements and yada yada was like where do they live in the wild, because they don't have like a huge, they do have a bigger range than what we originally thought until the past couple of years. They do extend a little outside of Borneo. I forget exactly into where, but now it's projected that there's a little, I don't know. I've read a couple different things. Some people still say there's less than 200 individuals in the wild. Some people say that there's now like more than 500 or something like that, but
Okay.
it's still pretty
Still
low
not a lot.
numbers.
Yeah.
Yeah. And yeah, so where they live in very dense, like forested areas. And they like to hang out particularly like right where the riverbed will run over like a bunch of rocks and kind of get some movement under it. And it's really shallow water. So they like to stand like an alligator on their hind legs and kind of stick their nose up above the water and then go back down into like a little hide. And then like 10 minutes later, pop back out, take a breath, come back. Or like I've noticed mine. I didn't really read much about this, but I've noticed that mine seems to really prefer to wedge himself in between like a rock or like some of the wood and the glass or something like that, and kind of just wedge himself to where his just the tip of his nose is sticking out and the rest of his body's underwater still.
Yeah.
And so yeah, so I've really just tried to replicate that because back to what I'll say about their natural environment. So their natural environment being where it's at, it would make a lot of sense that that water would be very rich in tannins, because tannins just come from like any plant material that's fallen into the water and then starts to like decompose and release the I don't know, the tannins, I guess. I don't know. I think
Yeah.
there's
Yeah.
like a technical term for it, but yeah. So to me, that makes a lot more sense. So I've been keeping up with that. His skin looks fantastic. He's about to shed for the first time right now. So yeah, so he's doing pretty good. I'm super fortunate to have him. He's easily the coolest animal I've ever interacted with, and I mean, he's also nocturnal, which makes it pretty nice for me to like really take care of him, because I'll come home, take care of all my lizards here.
Yeah.
I just get to give him all my time at night. Excuse me. Which yeah, it makes my conscience a lot, puts it at ease because I don't have to. I can give him a lot of time and effort. No, he's doing fantastic. Because the only thing that's difficult about keeping him, and it's probably more just a me thing because I'm very like I like to do things like right away. Like if I notice something's wrong, I got to do it right away. I can't like just let it sit. I mean, obviously, like no, like that's I know in my head that that's okay to do. It's just I like to
Yeah,
be a freak, I guess. So like the second his water will start creeping up to like the 1.0 ppm ammonia level, I'll just go ahead and change it, like whole water change. And he's only in like he's just a baby right now, so I only have him in like a small low exoterra.
yeah.
I'm about to upgrade him, but it only holds about 2 gallons of water, maybe a little with a little bit of change. Um, and so it's like every 2 days at max, or I have to change his water. And that part I've gotten a little bit faster at it, but it is a bit of a pain to suck
Yeah.
out all that water, replace it, make sure all the levels are right, same temperature. But it's worth every second. It's worth every second to be able to keep him, man. That is for sure. He's so cool.
Yeah, no,
Um,
that's there's a guy in the UK that's got, I believe, a pair. Um,
mhm.
and I believe I could be wrong because I don't know much about them, but they're live bearers as well, aren't they?
They actually lay eggs. The
Oh, they lay egg.
shinnies,
Okay, I'm
yeah,
getting
the
confused.
shinnies are live bears though. Actually,
I
though, yeah,
have, yeah. Now you've said that, I remember the guy that breeds them on the YouTube. I remember watching a video and he had some cork bark and moss underneath it, and they laid the eggs under the cork bark on the
I,
moss. I remember
yeah,
now you've said.
I think I saw that exact same video. I know you're talking about actually. Now that you say that, because yeah, there's very few breeders out there, and the breeder. It seems that like the terrarium channel's one, geckos by Sophie's another. Then there's like 2 or 3 more, but it's like all in the UK or not you like Europe area. I
Europe,
don't know
yeah,
if they're
yeah, yeah,
exactly
yeah.
in the UK. But yeah, here in America, I mean, I think there's maybe been 1 or 2 people, but that's just mainly because they're so uncommon here.
Yeah,
There's just like there's none here. It's seeming I have noticed they're popping up a bit more considering like this guy that I'm maybe getting this female from has already reached out to me again. Um, it's seeming that they're becoming more popular as more people are having success with them, which makes me really happy because I want to put them out there. I mean, they're the coolest lizards ever. They're
yeah.
so much fun. But
No, I would love to
yeah.
get some myself. So are you giving yours? If I didn't know they were nocturnal, to be honest. So are you giving yours UVB or no?
Yes, so that has been something I have actually been tossing over in my head this past like week or two. I've been thinking about it because so they don't need much UVB. I do know that for sure. The terrarium channel did talk about that a bunch. So they like the shades, like using like a 5.0 bulb and just making sure they're in like the 1.0, 2.0 range. That's fine, but typically they're gonna hide anyways. So I mean, I don't really think it's that big of a deal for them. However, the thing that I have been hesitant on is I don't know. I have been dusting his like worms with like some calcium supplements and stuff, like with
Hmm.
D3.
Hmm.
And I'll kind of just let it sit there and absorb into the worm so it's not like getting all in the water and stuff once I put it in there. But I haven't seen like anybody really talk about whether or not they need that because I know that like some nocturnal animals that's not really that important for them, but I just don't really feel like a steady diet of earthworms is gonna do much for him. So
I
I
know what you
have been
mean.
kind of dusting it, and I do have his UVB. Like I'll kind of move it, like wherever he's hiding for the day, I'll kind of try to move the light closer to where he's at, so he does get some. Especially just because he's a baby. I would imagine if anything, if it was important for them at any point in their life, it would be the age he's at now. So I
Growing,
just
yeah.
better safe than sorry. It's definitely not going to hurt him. So yeah, I
Yeah,
was thinking
no,
I might reach out to a couple people and see if they have some answers on that. I haven't done it yet, but yeah, good question.
yeah,
I've been thinking about that.
I'd give UVB.
Mhm.
Because I'm sure you do get them in America, but Arcadia make a shade dweller, which is literally like you say UVI of like 0.5 to like 1.5 or something like that.
Yes, yes. That's actually exactly what the terrarium channel uses. So the shade dweller Arcadia bulb. Yeah.
Yeah, so that's what I in my head would use. And then they're quite temperate as well, aren't they? They don't need it hot. They need it like relatively cool, or have I got that wrong?
Yeah, pretty rel like they don't need a basking spot, that's for sure. I have noticed that mine likes to move over to the heater, like the actual heater in the enclosure, and kind of lay on top of it throughout the day.
Mm-hmm.
So I would say it is like maybe a good idea to offer like a warmer spot and a cooler spot. But typically their water temperature is like 80 degrees, so they do like the water a bit warmer than like your average like fish or
Yeah.
like even like cave lizards or stuff like that. They definitely like it a bit warmer. So like I keep it at 80 degrees exactly throughout the day, and then I keep the ambient air temperature from 80 to like 79 degrees. I have like a ceramic heat emitter kind of towering over the enclosure that kind of just gives some heat off into the air.
Yeah.
Because another thing that they're prone to is if they're breathing air that is cooler than the air or than the water that they're in, that can cause some respiratory infections for them
Yeah.
down the road. So I've been hesitant to that. And then at night, I turn the heater down to like 79, and it ranges between like 78, 79.
Yeah.
And then I just kind of turn off the heater, and the ambient air will be like 76, 77. So it's not really getting much cooler. But yeah, they live in Borneo is like right next to the equator, so it
Yeah.
really doesn't fluctuate much. But yeah, they don't really need like a hot spot or anything really like that, especially being nocturnal. And nocturnal is even like a stretch for them. Like they aren't really active much at all. They like to just hide. It's only when you like the second that I don't even have to show him the worm. If I just stick the worm in like the center of the enclosure at night, within 15 seconds, he's darting all around. Like when it's food time, they
Yeah.
become very active. Like he'll just swim all around, and then eventually he'll like bump into it and then just attack it and just slurp it down real quick. So they're super fun to watch hunt. But other than that, I mean, he kind of just lays there and just yeah, that's
Doesn't
pretty
do a
much
lot.
it. Doesn't do
Yeah.
much, but yeah, it makes it easy for me for sure.
Yeah, no, they're definitely people that know. If you don't know what a Borneo earless monitor is, you need to Google it. If I can be bothered to edit, I will put a picture up as we're talking about them. But I'm terrible at editing, so if I don't, Google it. Or just check out Instagram. I'll put your links and stuff in the description anyway, and they can check that out there. But I was so I'm just thinking. I was meant to be in Borneo in 2020. I was going to go for 2 weeks,
Cool.
like exploring and finding animals and stuff, but COVID and all that rubbish.
Mhm.
But are they blind? Have they got bad vision? Have they got good vision?
They've got reduced vision, is what I've read. What I've noticed from mine is he seems to have fine vision. What it really is they have very, very small eyes.
Okay.
Like his eyes are like you almost can't see them in the photos. I think I on the photo I posted last night on my story. I don't know if you saw it. You can really kind of see his eyes well. And what's cool is I personally thought myself up and like I had done a ton of research on them before I even knew I was getting one. And I never knew that because it looks like they have blue eyes from most photos. It's actually not their eyes that are blue. Their eyes are brown. It's their eyelids that are like a light powder blue. And I didn't
Okay.
realize it until I got mine. And I was kind of like up in his face at night, and I was like, I saw him kind of. It's like a oh, I forget the word for it. I should know it. It's like those eyelids that frogs have when they go underwater, or crocs. It's like the
Oh,
half eyelids that they can still
nectating
see.
membranes.
Yes,
Yeah.
exactly. Yeah. So it's kind of like that because I see it more pronounced when he goes underwater. Um, but they have good vision at night, but they lack in vision during the day. I'd say just because of their small eyes and yeah, he definitely does not like light. Like it's tough getting videos of him
Yeah.
because he won't I'll have to wait until he like right when he bites the food and then I'll start recording. Like I've only very seldom have I gotten him to like actually come up and bite the worm and take it fully on with the flashlight on and everything at night, obviously, because otherwise you wouldn't see him.
Yeah. Yeah.
And a lot of keepers I have also seen will feed them during the day, and mine will eat during the day, but he is not near as like excited to eat or will eat near as much as what he will eat at night. So I typically just wait till like 11 or 12 at night right before I go to bed. I just kind of cut up a big old night crawler into like 5 pieces and then just go in there, and he usually crushes the whole thing.
Yeah.
And yeah.
So is that pretty much, because again, I haven't really done any research on them. Is that pretty much all they're eating? It's just like worms and stuff?
Yeah, in the wild, the adults will mainly be observed eating worms as their main diet, but they'll also eat like small aquatic frogs, sometimes small fish, and like sometimes insects. But in captivity, they mainly thrive off of night crawlers, and you can use red wigglers. I've heard a bit of controversy using red wigglers since I got mine. It's like it depends on where you get the red wigglers from, because if they're used in composting, sometimes the red wigglers have toxins in them that can be
Yeah.
bad for your animal over time. So typically I just stick to night crawlers. You can also give them, there are people that will give them like crickets in off the tongs in captivity, and some people even will feed adults pinky mice, which I thought was actually really interesting.
Okay.
So I've tried crickets a couple times. He doesn't really seem interested, which is fine. Um, I actually working at the pet shop, I have some like connections of people that have like some healthy, like captive bred, like aquatic frogs and stuff. They're pretty small.
Yeah, yeah.
So I've been thinking about getting some of those and seeing if you could try that. I've also heard they can eat leeches. I've been hesitant to go get some because you'd have to go to like
Yeah.
a bait shop, and I don't know where they're coming from. And
Yeah, yeah,
leeches are
yeah.
nasty. I mean, I don't know, but yeah, I have heard they can eat leeches. So it's a very, very dull diet, which is why I've been kind of really wanting to like, is anybody else like, using calcium powder and stuff? Because I don't hear anybody
Yeah.
talk about it, and it feels like they should be getting some. So I've been giving mine like I've only done it a couple times, and I'd imagine they don't need much. Similar to like I'm in caring for him, I'm kind of similar to. I also have a European legless lizard, which I'm
Hmm.
sure you're
Yeah,
pretty
yeah.
familiar with.
Yeah, yeah.
And he's kind of like, or she is kind of like the same way, where she doesn't really need as much like calcium with like at least with D3 or UV light because they're more shade dwellers. So kind of assuming that he's gonna be fine. But yeah, I'm gonna message some people after this and see if I can get some more opinions on it, because there's not a whole lot of information on the
No, that's the
Borneos.
problem.
Yeah.
Yeah. I did the podcast with Tyranitar the Aki, Eric, who's a vet in Florida. And he basically said, because our podcast was about like the study of gout in Audatria. So to my understanding, you can't overdose an animal on calcium. So if you're dusting calcium, you should be fine, but you can overdose on D3.
Yes.
So D3, so obviously an animal will intake calcium and then go through the D3 cycle. The UVB will metabolize the whatever the scientific term, but like the minerals, and break down the calcium, and the body transforms it into D3, which will then go into the bones and stop them getting metabolic bone disease. That's my basic understanding of it. So I personally, I don't know, and I'm not an expert, but in my head, dusting with D3 could be a bad idea if you're giving UVB. If you're not giving UVB, I think it would be fine. My only concern would be, because there's so little known on them, sadly, you'd probably have to go with what most are doing. And if most aren't dusting, you're just going to have to hope that worms, just because I imagine, and again, I don't know, so please tell me to shut up, I'm being an idiot, but I would imagine they seem very niche and specialist, so they clearly, the problem is as well with captivity on all animals, we get these animals in, no matter what species, and we have no idea how to look after it. When they first come in, like 30 years ago, when we got bearded dragons, everyone was like, and everything's growing and changing. So I'm sure that you'll look back in 25 years breeding like an army of Lanthanotis, and you'd be like, do you remember like that podcast I did when I was like dusting worms? Because you'll know so much. But for now, I don't envy you, because like I think it's bad enough trying to figure out how to breed a mangrove monitor, and then there's 10 people doing it. Whereas you're
Mhm.
like doing a species that people, one, there's not even documentation in the wild, and two, there's like next to no one doing it in captivity. So I don't envy you for that sense. But my brain would go, I wouldn't dust D3 with
Yes.
UVB.
Yes.
At least definitely not regularly, and you're not. So I think that would be fine. But my brain would be scared that I would overdose it, because if they're low
Hmm.
UVI anyway, they obviously don't
Hmm.
want. I personally am on the side of giving every reptile UVB regardless of the species.
Hmm.
But yeah,
I agree.
that's an argument for a different day. But that's
Yeah.
my opinion. So I
Yeah.
think if you've got a shade dweller, I would
Yeah.
probably just use I use Arcadia,
Hmm.
the Calcium Pro and the multivitamin, it's like magnesium or something like that.
Hmm.
Probably use those if any. But try and reach out to the terrarium channel or whoever. I don't know if they've got an Instagram, but try and reach out to them and see. I will message you the guy in the UK who's got them. I don't
Oh,
know
cool.
how open he'll be to public. I don't know if he's
Hmm.
secretive. I don't, but I'll send you his
Yeah.
Instagram. Worst case, message him and he says, "Go away. You're in the same boat." Or
Exactly.
he
Yeah.
might go, "Oh, okay, cool." I've spoken to him briefly in the past, so I'll try and make that. I'll message him to say that I'll send it across, and I'll send it across to you just to
Sweet,
see.
man. Thank
Hopefully,
you.
it might lead to nothing, but it might
Yeah.
be.
No, I appreciate it for sure. The effort's all that's needed. Thank you. But
um,
yeah, I agree 100%. I realized I actually said I said with D3. I am using the one without D3 right now for the lamp. I
oh,
noticed
okay.
for that reason because I'm on that same thing where I've been thinking that because that was a problem with my paper white zero bearded dragon that I first got in. He had too much D3 in his system from his previous owner. So like when I took him to the vet and had blood work done, etc., they like had that pop up. So I had to like be really careful about giving him that. So I have been pretty familiar with that, and I did think about that because yeah, I don't really want to overdose him. And like same thing with my tree monitors. Like I give them D3, but usually like I'll typically dust like every day. Like I'll do like a light dust. Sometimes every other day. It depends. But I'll do like D3 like twice to three times a week, depending. But maybe even that I'm thinking now might be
Yeah, I don't do
a
it at all.
little much. But
Yeah,
you don't. So yeah, you don't even do it
no,
at all.
I dust
Okay.
every feed, calcium
Yeah.
without D3. I
Okay.
used to give D3 probably once a week.
Mm-hmm.
Last year, the start of this year. But the
Mm-hmm.
more I've been researching myself, I don't give calcium. I have a solar meter, so I check
Mm-hmm.
my UVB once a month. I check all my UVB.
Yes,
I've
I had
done
the
that
same thing.
today. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and I've changed some UVBs around because I have some species that want 2 to 3, and I have some species that want 3 to 4. So I've actually been
Mm-hmm.
mixing UVBs around today, and that's why I didn't end up doing my mangrove because I've been too busy. Um,
Gotcha.
but that's why I have to trust in the science of the UVB and hope that it will work.
Yep.
I don't dust with D3. I
Okay.
used to once a week, and I haven't ever seen any ill effects. But I
Yeah.
also know it's a long-term thing. It'll be a build-up over years,
Mm-hmm.
feeding once or twice a week rather than a build-up over months. You'd probably have to
Mm.
heavily dust
Heavily load
with
them
D3 to
up.
see
Yeah.
it in a couple of months. It will be a couple of year thing. Um,
Mm-hmm.
but yeah, I don't. I use the Arcadia stuff, and I follow this on their website, and it's basically a cycle, and it's like every feed dust with calcium, every eighth feed dust with the magnesium like minerals, and then there's another
Mm.
one. And then I use the Arcadia gut load for the insects as well. So I gut load my insects with Arcadia.
Yes. Okay,
Um,
gotcha. Yeah, I'm also big on gut loading. I don't use any specific or actually no, I have this Rapashi I
yeah,
don't know, Rapashi like bug gut load that I'll kind of cook into a gel and then throw in with all my crickets and my roaches and stuff. Yeah, because
yeah.
that's important. Otherwise your lizards aren't getting
Yeah,
anything.
exactly. Yeah,
Yeah.
they're just getting dry. The one of my biggest pet peeves is people going to a pet shop. I don't know how bugs are stored in the US, but in the UK they're in like little tiny boxes. And there'll be like 10 or 15 locusts in the box, and people will come home and then just leave the box, which has been sat in the reptile shop for a week and then probably packaged. So they'll probably been in a box for like 2 weeks. There's no food, there's no hydration, and then they'll feed them to their lizards. And the problem is, it's not people's fault. There's just no one speaking about it. Like some pet shops don't go, when you get home, put them into a faunarium or a tub or a critter keeper or a glass tank. Like I have, I'll grab it now so everyone can see. So I have, literally off Amazon, it was £10.
Oh yes, I saw that. I saw you
outside,
post
like-
that yesterday.
Yeah, so literally, I have that, and then I have like loads of flying locusts in there.
Man, yeah. See, I'm jealous of that because I would love my tree monitors would go crazy for that, and I would never have a problem with any of my tree monitors not wanting to eat bugs if they had those locusts. Because those, I mean, those are like they have the big wings. They're super like they're like a big cricket, but so they don't have as nearly as hard as the skeleton. Well, they still have like a decent exoskeleton, I guess, but
It's a bit
I feel like
softer than, definitely softer than roaches.
that's what yeah, exactly. I just can't legally have them in Arizona. I don't even think there's many states in the U.S. that allow them. But like,
Have you heard of
like,
Kai Fan?
mm-mm.
Okay, so Kai Fan, to my knowledge, is the only person in the US, who's licensed to sell grasshoppers state. I don't know if every single state, because I don't know American logistics. But he breeds them and sells them. He's a monitor guy. He breeds mangrove monitors.
Oh, okay.
But he's in the States and he breeds several species of grasshoppers. And I know, because I listened to his podcast, he has a podcast about monitor lizards as well. And he breeds grasshoppers. And I'm in contact with him, so I'll message him and see if he can sell to Arizona. I don't imagine they're cheap because he's like the only person doing it. But you could buy some and try and breed them and have your own colony then, if you can get them.
In Arizona, I know specifically that it's totally illegal because sometimes they'll show up at the expos in California, and like I'll be like, ooh, like I want people to like grab me some and bring them back, but it's like a big deal here, I guess. Like they don't mess around with that in Arizona. Same thing with Gila monsters. Gila monsters in specific because they're native here. But really like Mexican, like any of the Helodermas, like you just can't them in Arizona, and Arizona is like the only state really that's like that. And I guess it's also kind of strict on it. But otherwise I would have I'd have so many Gila monsters. Those are so cool.
Yeah, I do like it. We have to have a license to be able to keep Heloderma here. And the license is expensive, and they've just changed the law because you have to have insurance to be able to have the license. But the license, the insurance only covers, it's like something silly like £2,000 per animal or something stupid like that. And then if you have like a viper that's parthenogenetic and it gives birth to one baby, your insurance is then invalid instantly because you have two animals when you've only been. So I don't know.
That's a pain.
Yeah, I've not looked into it. I've spoken to a few people about it. I've not looked into it. But yeah, there's a lot of people in the UK that have been stung by it because obviously they'd be venomous keepers, and now they've changed the insurance to be so much money per animal. So collections are having to disperse, but then people don't think about it because where are the animals going to go? So
yep. Oh man, yeah. Especially over in the UK. I mean, that's not like you can. They're a long way from home.
Well, this is it. We're lucky that we can't. I say we can't get invasive species. We can get invasive species. We have an invasive population of scorpions in a little town called Kent, and there's more scorpions there than there is in their native range.
Holy crap!
But that's not due to the pet trade. That's due to ships, and they would come in on the boats. But yeah, invasiveness is a conversation for another day. But we're around. Well, I think we started around 8 and it's now like 10:30. So I think we're around the 2.5 hour mark. So what we're going to do is, if there's anything you would like to ask me or anything you would like to touch on before I give you the 2 wrap up questions.
No, I think I'm pretty much good, man. Yeah, it's been a great conversation. I'm super glad you had me on here. Sorry to take up so much of your time.
No.
I love
appreciate
to talk about lizards.
Yeah, no, same. And that's why I started the podcast. I'll be completely honest. I started the podcast because none of my friends like reptiles. So
Yep, same here.
I wanted to start the podcast to just nerd out with people of a similar mindset of me.
Mm-hmm.
Hopefully learn something myself, as well as maybe teach someone something. And then I thought I might as well put it on social, because then if it helps one person, because the way I see it is I've enjoyed this. Hopefully you've enjoyed this.
Oh yeah.
So it's time well spent. And then if
Mm-hmm.
one person gets value from it outside of you and I, then great.
For sure.
So that's why I've started it. So I appreciate you for coming on. Thank you very much. I love your passion. Your passion's infectious, and you've got me like all giddy and like a schoolgirl. Like, oh, it's so exciting! Lizards are sick.
Yeah, thank you, man. Same to you. Same to you. I can definitely tell you have a real passion for all this, man. And I've seen your Instagram start really growing over just even the
Yeah,
past few weeks, man. And I'm super happy for you. You definitely deserve it.
thanks,
You've been
man.
doing some great stuff.
I went
Um,
I went viral the other day. I had
yeah, dude. Yeah, that
810
video.
the mangrove monitor like
Yeah,
charging me.
that's
I woke
so
up and it
awesome.
had like 300,000 views, and then it's got to like 810,000 at the moment. And I
Jeez,
gained like
that's wow.
3,000 followers in like 3 days. It was a bit surreal.
Holy,
Yeah.
that is super cool, man. Hey,
Yeah. So
congratulations.
yeah,
That's
thank you very
awesome.
much, man. But hopefully this is gonna sound like so stupid as well. But like when I had 1,000 followers, I'd message someone. And if someone had like 3,000 followers, they'd be like, oh, I'd get nothing from this. But now I'm like
Hmm.
big on Instagram.
Yeah,
People are gonna be
yeah.
like, oh yeah, I'm gonna get something from this. So hopefully,
Mhm.
because I did a podcast on reptiles and research. I was a guest on his podcast talking to monitor lizards. And then Father Blue actually messaged me and reached out to me and was like, congratulations on the podcast. That was a sick job.
Mm.
And then he was like, congratulations on your socials. You're like growing and stuff. And then
That's awesome.
I messaged him back and I was like, yeah, thank you. I wanted to reach out to him. I said to him, I literally said, I wanted to reach out to you, but I see you as like a big boy. So I want to like become a bit better podcaster. Before I
Yeah.
reached out to him. And he was like, nah, I'd love to come on. So I've got another episode recording next Sunday with a guy I've been talking to a
Wow.
long while. And then I think I'm going to try and arrange the next episode to be with Father Blue. But I'm going to try and bring out one podcast a week. I'm going to try.
Heck yeah.
Yeah. So hopefully,
I will stay tuned for those. I love these, man. They're very entertaining. I like to listen to them while I drive. My I work two jobs, and one of my jobs is like 35, 40 minutes away, depending on traffic.
yeah,
So I'll just throw in some podcasts sometimes, just listen. And it's
yeah. And that's what I do
maybe I
pretty
learned
much.
something on the journeys. But yeah, no, keep it up for sure, man. And if you ever want to have me back, happy to come back.
Yeah,
I'll
no, would
definitely
definitely
be.
100%. When it doesn't have to be then, but when you I know you'll do it, but when you first get your tree monitors like to breed,
Mhm.
we'll have you back on to talk about how great it is hatching babies.
Sweet. That would
Um,
be awesome.
but I'll hit you with I have two wrap-up questions at the end of every podcast. And
Mhm.
the first one is, what advice would you give somebody starting the reptile hobby?
That's a good question. My main advice would be to do as much research as you possibly can, and also keep an open mind. Keep an open mind to anyone and everybody that gives you any advice. Always, like, obviously, make sure they have basic factual reasoning behind what they're doing. But like, there's 100 different ways to do most things for lizards and reptiles in general. So like, don't get this is something that I struggled with at first. Don't get too wrapped up in trying to figure out what is the best way or the perfect way. Just do to the best of your ability to keep that lizard healthy. But then, like on the other side of the coin to that, I mean, don't impulse buy any snake. That's the thing with snakes for me too. That's a topic for another time. Is like if you're not gonna give the animal like more than double its size in just straight up like lengthwise of the enclosure, you shouldn't be getting that animal. That's not the animal for you. But yeah, no, I'd say
Yeah, yeah,
that's my
no,
advice. Just keep an open mind and do a lot of research on any of the animals you choose to acquire because they you owe it to them to make sure that they are thriving and also be a very attentive keeper. Make sure you read your lizards. Learn how to read the expressions and the behaviors of your different reptiles. That's very important.
You're so how old are you? 19, based on basic
19.
maths? Yeah. So
Yeah,
um
19.
you remind me of me 9 years ago, and we look sort of similar. So it's sort of weird that how I'm looking at it now, in the
That's
sense of
funny.
like, I'm like, this is me without a beard 10 years ago, going, just make sure like you do right by your lizards, because it's not our right. So I think I mean, you've got a better collection than me anyway, not that that
No,
matters.
man.
But I
Thank
mean,
you.
you've got a Borneo earless monitor, so let's be honest, you've got a
Thank you, man. I'm blessed. I really am blessed
but
to
that's
have
good,
what I have.
because you have the same, not that my way is the right way, and it's also your way because you've had it before we met, so it's your way and my way, but
Mhm.
you have the mentality of, I'm privileged and I'm lucky that I get these
Mhm.
animals, rather than it's my right or I deserve these
Yes.
animals. So I know you're going to
Mhm.
do well, and I'm very excited to see what comes like in store for you. And the final question, it's a bit philosophical and deep. It's the best advice you personally have ever received, unreptile related.
Unreptile related.
It can be reptile related, in the sense, for
Okay.
example, follow your passion could be
Mhm.
reptile related. Um,
Yeah.
but just more so personally to you, what, or at least off the top of your head, the best piece of advice that
Hmm.
you've ever had.
Best, actually, I would say it goes along with what I was saying would be my best advice to give to people. I'd say the best advice that I ever received was just like don't don't overthink it too much. Just kind of step back and like look at your because I used to stress so much over like just my bearded dragon. Be like, he's showing stress signs for an hour today. I'd be like, oh
Yeah,
my gosh,
yeah,
he's unhappy. He's not in a good enclosure. And so I'd say that like I tend to do that in a lot of aspects of life. So I'd say that's probably my best advice is just like just don't overthink. Just relax. Just know that have faith in what you know is right and have faith that you're doing it correctly. Like you're keeping the animal healthy and happy. If your animal is eating, drinking, active, it's not showing signs of lethargy. Um, you're doing it all correctly. Don't look into the specifics of what every different person. Don't get too wrapped up in all the different opinions and ways to keep animals. Just try to do what you think is best for the animal.
yeah, yeah. I can agree with that. I find advice is free and it should always be listened to, but it shouldn't always
Hmm.
be followed. Um, Sometimes
Hmm.
you'll be given advice from someone, and you should be grateful that that person's taken the time out of the day to give you advice, but they could
Hmm.
also be talking complete and utter rubbish. So the
Yeah.
way I see it is, if you talk to someone, and let's just say, for example, Ackies need deep soil. They say
Hmm.
Ackies need deep soil, and then you talk to someone else and they say, oh, Ackies need deep soil, and you talk to someone else and they go, oh, Ackies need deep soil. The chances are Ackies need deep soil,
Yeah,
because you've
exactly.
spoken to multiple people and they've said the same thing in their own rendition.
Hmm. Yeah.
But then if you talk to someone and they go, yeah, Ackies really like it on Aspen, you
Hmm.
can be like, okay, well, thanks for your advice, and then
Yeah.
let bygones be bygones, you know?
Hmm.
So yeah, no, I agree with that, and I appreciate you for your honesty and your time today.
Yeah.
And we'll wrap this up because it is 10:30 at night in the UK.
Yeah.
And
I
you've got,
apologize.
no, it's no worries at all. I'll probably still be up for a couple of hours anyway, just because I'm
Hmm.
very much a nocturnal. I've still got to work out yet, so I'm still
Hmm.
I'm a night owl rather than an early. I wake up in the morning, I want to die, and then I get to like 12
Yeah.
o'clock at night, and I'm like, right, okay, let's do some weights.
Yep.
Um,
That's how I am.
but yeah,
Exactly.
so I'm very looking forward to keeping. I'll put all your links and stuff in. Have you got a YouTube channel, or are you just Instagram?
Just Instagram at the moment. I made a TikTok. I just haven't really posted much on TikTok. I have kind of recently thought about doing a couple YouTube videos, especially considering I'm going to be building some pretty new or some pretty cool new enclosures for like the tree monitors and stuff. So I might fire that up. Maybe do a couple
Yeah,
videos.
yeah.
But yeah, as of right now, just Instagram and TikTok mainly.
Yeah, get it started, put some shorts up, and then I'll put your link to YouTube in this, and then
Sweet.
hopefully you might get some people going, because I've only got like, I think I'm on 630 subscribers at the moment. But you do like
That's
a
pretty
short and you get like 10 subscribers per short.
Okay.
And I've only been posting since May of this year, so not even
Mhm.
6 months.
Okay,
So it's
wow.
100 subscribers a month. It's all right.
Yeah, that's pretty good.
But yeah, I'll make sure that all your links are in the description. And
Sweet, man.
if anyone's got any questions and stuff, leave them in the comments, and we'll answer
Feel
them
free
to
to
the best
message
of our
me
abilities.
anytime.
Yeah, and I'll
I'm great at responding. But
I'll try and put you in contact with the guy in the UK that's got land for notice.
cool.
Like I said, I don't know if he's going to be secretive about it or not. He posts them
Yeah.
on Facebook, so it's not a secret that he's got them. I just don't know
Mhm.
what he's like personally. But I think he's sound, so hopefully that can get you some help there. And I'm really excited to see what your baby yellow tree monitors are going to look like, because your adults are like stunning.
Thank you, man. Yeah, I am super excited. I really, fingers crossed that I can get some babies from these next coming months. So I will keep you guys updated. Follow along on the Instagram. I'll always be posting on there. But
Yeah, no, I will leave
yeah.
Parker's Parks link in the description. Thank you everyone for tuning in again to the Captive Raptors podcast. Hopefully a 2.5 hour episode, depending on how much I edit or don't edit. Hopefully some people have found some value in this, and I can't wait to have you back on and sort of see where your collection's grown and where you've gone in the next 3, 4, 5, 6 months to a year, or whatever the case may be.
Awesome, man. Yeah, I can't wait to come back. I'm excited to see how much this podcast and your account grows too, man, because
Yeah,
you've got some awesome stuff.
hopefully it'll go somewhere. Not for any other reason than monitors need a bit of help, because there's a lot of monitors that don't get justice. And again, we are going to wrap this up eventually, but I'll talk all day about it, and we'll talk a little bit once I hit stop in a minute. I'm not going to shoot. I'm not going to dip. If you want to stay and chat, we can stay and chat. But yeah, just monitors as a general, they get a bad rap, and the problem is with the monitor community, they hate people that don't have monitors, and they go, no, you don't deserve monitors, and you can't keep monitors, and monitors are hard work. So it makes it impossible to get into monitors. So I wanted to be that knight in shining armor, I guess, that goes,
Yep.
do you know what? I'll be real with people. I'll either say if I think you're an idiot, I'll say if you can get them, I'll say what I think in a polite manner. Because the worst thing you can do to someone who's keeping an Aki on Aspen is to go, you're an effing idiot. How dare you do this? This is wrong. Because they're not going to listen. The best thing you can do is go, hey, when I first started keeping Akis, I made some mistakes too. Do you mind if I give you some advice? It's proven that they get hydrated through ambient air, humidity, as well as their burrows. So in order to accomplish this, you need deep soil, you need a basking spot of, well, I keep mine around 55 to 65 degrees, which is like 140 degrees Fahrenheit, I think. Thereabouts.
That's exactly where I keep mine.
Yeah, so you need to keep them at this. You need to make sure they've got enrichment, blah, 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 blah. Not an Aki care guide, but that's what you should do, rather than just saying to someone, you're an idiot, this animal's going to die, because people just don't listen. But if you're polite and you can show case in point, then people might actually listen, and you might be able to save an animal's life. And that's why I've put myself out on social. I'm not looking
it's all
forward.
about education.
Exactly. I'm not looking forward to the day I eventually get hate. Because I do struggle quite badly with mental health. So I know I'm going to beat myself up about it. But I've had a couple of people message me, and I know I've done some good. So I just need to try and remember that I'm helping.
You are definitely helping, my man. Don't let the people that are just closed-minded to the entire reptile community and think we're all monsters and are just stealing these lizards from their habitat for our own benefit and all that. Don't even give them the time of day. Yeah, no, you're keeping your lizards exceptionally well for sure. All your reptiles for sure. I've
Thank you
been
very much,
keeping up,
brother.
and I'm definitely impressed.
No, I appreciate that. I appreciate your time. I appreciate your honesty. And most of all, I appreciate your passion.
Thank you, man. Thank you.
No worries. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in. I am going to hit stop, and that is the Captive Raptors podcast adjourned.